Come on, come all, nothing but love, nothing but respect. We're here for the One Piece chapter 1075 live discussion. I got with me Eggs for Brekkie, aka Daniel. Say hello, my dude. I got my little ears up.
Hello.
Hello, 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 hello. Whew. So this reaction didn't have a hell of a lot of notice. This discussion tonight, but we're going to be here and we're going to be happy nonetheless. Normally we do these on Sundays, but it's a day early today, so not making you guys and girls wait. As always, we're going to start at the beginning of the chapter and work our way through. But this chapter was really, really short, but felt like it had a lot of narrative impact and stuff like that. Like, one of the big things I sort of felt reading this chapter, right, was kind of like, how do I describe it? It really felt like there was a heap of different narrative techniques used and like visual techniques used to depict different things. Like starting off with the front cover page, right? So we've got all of the Gorosei in silhouette, right? And we've got Vegapunk who's up in the foreground but not in silhouette. I think this is really interesting, and thematically I feel like there's a lot people can sort of dive into with this. And obviously we're gonna have to wait and see with what comes out in like actual chapters and that to have like a decent understanding of stuff. But it's like, I think there's a few interesting reasons why this artistic choice was picked here. Because, I mean, why hide the Gorosei in a silhouette? We already know what they'll look like, you know what I mean?
Mm.
And looking based off how they look here, they still haven't aged, and this would be the earliest in the timeline we've ever seen them all. Right?
Right.
So they all look identical. At least facial hair and stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
One thing else I noticed, so like, you know how the Celestial Dragons are above everyone, and the Gorosei are the foremost leaders of the world, except for Im. So from a public standpoint, these guys are the foremost leaders. One thing that I thought, thematically speaking, was really interesting, and I really was impressed by, is notice how all of the Gorosei have white facial hair in their silhouette, except for the Gandhi dude.
Okay.
Right? And you just turn around and be like, oh, that's because of his facial hair. But if you actually look, he's the only one with white shoes. Right?
Weird. Okay.
So I'm actually looking at this from a thematical standpoint, right? And I'm going, if these guys are the leaders of the world, right? What I'm kind of seeing from this, from like a thematical representation, is those Gorosei with the facial hair, I would argue, are the thinkers. Right? The attention is being brought to their heads, their minds. Right?
Okay.
All different types of thinking and stuff like that. Whereas the Gandhi one, I think, not only just because he's the only one that we see with an active weapon, but like by the absence of hair, it's almost like he's above that. You know, depicting it with the silhouette. So like he's above that worldly view in a sense. So like, you know how in like Buddhism and Hinduism and that, it's like about becoming enlightened,
Yeah.
and how like that thematical through line is used really heavily with like Zoro and Swordsman in One Piece. Right?
Okay.
I could see it as he is like the warmongerer out of the Celestial Dragons, or out of the Gorosei, and he sort of sees himself as above all these issues, and is just like potentially the quickest out of the Gorosei to like act, not hesitate and like overthink things. Maybe I'm reading way too much into it. I'm gonna have to see later on, but I think it's really interesting how they're like, if you look, they're all silhouetted like that. He's obviously got the inverse silhouette, right? And we know he's got a white sword, so you could have just as easily made his sword the white silhouette. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Right. Yeah. True.
But then in the flip, in the foreground, in the opposite sort of colouring scheme, you've got Vegapunk, where the attention is specifically brought to his mind. which the whole point of him having this meeting, right, is granted an audience with the five elders due to his scientific genius. So obviously they're bringing attention to his mind in that as well. Again, at this point in time, this is all like a bunch of like potential hearsay and stuff like that, and I really could be reading into it too much. But when I first saw that, I was like, ooh, it's interesting because none of the background is in silhouette or anything like that. We already know what all the Gorosei look like, so it's a very artistically specific choice.
Yeah.
To have them depicted like this, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree.
But that being said as well, like, I don't know where the cover series goes from here because it's sort of like we've barely had Germa in it for like the last couple of chapters.
Yeah.
So I don't know if this is gonna depict.
It's funny. We're just kind of getting like little glimpses of like the relationship of Mads, I suppose. It hasn't actually been that involved, to be honest.
Do you know what I think's actually gonna take course over this backstory or this cover series? I think we're gonna go through until we know Vegapunk gets captured by the world government. Remember that language is very important because he's having a meeting with the Gorosei here. He seems like he's on good terms with the government, right?
Yeah.
But we know that the Mads group was regarded as like a rogue pirate group almost.
Yeah.
That traveled around. Well, he's clearly not being treated like that here. So I wonder if after the Gorosei meet Vegapunk, they throw out a smear campaign and make Mads seem more villainous than maybe they already are. Or just shine a light on their more villainous members. Right? And this cover series will cover the breakup of Mads, and then after the breakup of Mads, Judge meeting Sora and forming what we currently know to be the Germa 66's organization. Because at this point in time, we know the entire Germa organization, right, that we know it today, had to be built from the ground up by Judge. Because it's an entire nation of clones, with the only non-clone members being Judge, his assistant, and his kids. And Sora at the time. So my thought process is it's going to take us all the way up to Sanji's flashback in Whole Cake Island. If that makes sense.
Okay, yeah, could see it.
Like originally I didn't really know where it was going, but the way it's been going so far, I think that's sort of the mindset of it, and it might end with once it gets up to date on Judge's timeline and how the Germa came to be. It might show us the new state of how Germa's like maybe progressed. In the current timeline after Whole Cake, if that makes sense.
Okay, yeah.
Any thoughts on that cover page? Anything you want to talk about that?
No, I think I didn't really I didn't see it like that. I just kind of went, oh, okay, picture. But yeah, it's good because I mean, I doubt that it's. I doubt the cover page is going to say nothing. You know what I mean? Like it's gonna have some kind of symbolism. And I think what I took from it, which is just like, oh, it's a picture of them, is not significant enough for it to actually have been a cover page. So I think there has to kind of be something there. Makes it a bit more relevant. Especially
kind of the way this chapter goes. I also apologize if there's any noise in the background, guys, just because, like I said, we have a thunderstorm warning here, and if this stream randomly cuts out, it's because there's been a huge blackout, okay? So that's prior warning, guys. And I do apologize as well. My throat is coarse as anything. I just did my reactions to Black Clover and My Hero for the week, right? Bro, they are two of the best chapters I've read for those respective series. I like the way those two chapters this week had me like reeling. I was like, bruh, because I've actually been like on record as being a bit of a seeming cruel with some of the rankings I give for the chapters, because I think their chapters are very small and lack a lot of content a lot of the time.
Right.
But this week they were premium. Okay, that being said, let's get into this. So we pick up where last chapter left off with with Pythagoras being blown up by a mystery person, right?
Yes.
Okay, hang on. I'm gonna mute my. Well, not mute myself. I'm gonna drop my volume down a little bit. Sorry, guys. just so that I can't hear, like, I can see my audio. You know when you can see your audio file?
I can't hear anything in the background at all from you.
I've just lowered
Maybe
the
it's
volume.
different on the stream.
I've just lowered the volume a little bit so you can't hear it too well.
I mean, I could never hear it, but yeah, like you maybe hear, it might be
Yeah,
different on the stream
that's
versus me.
That's fair. Yeah, so we pick up with Pythagoras being blown up. And we see Shaka on the cameras trying to see who did it. We see 3 shots of a silhouette. 1 shot of it walking up. Well, sorry, 4 shots of a silhouette. 1 shot of it walking up. 1 shot of it stationary from the front. 1 shot of it stationary from the back at a far angle. And then 1 shot of it trying to take out the transponder snail, followed by a huge explosion.
Yeah.
What do you think that was? Who do you think that was?
The chapter is trying to get us to think that it's one of the
Vegapunks.
Vegapunks.
Yeah.
I feel like it kind of has to be like a bit of a switcheroo. So maybe it's not one of the Vegapunks.
I don't know about you, but I have fucking I have like 3 or 4 really deep, serious thoughts on this, eh?
Mm-hmm.
All right, so
Shoot, hit me.
you're looking at the silhouette of it trying to grab the camera.
Yeah.
It's identical to the silhouette of Saturn, the Gorosei coming.
Okay.
From the hat to the dreads to the eyes distance away from the top of the head. It's identical.
I can see it.
But it makes no sense.
What does that mean?
It makes no sense that he's here yet, though. Because last chapter ended with the pacifists being sent as well. The Mark IIIs were being sent to go guard the coastline to see when the marine ships showed up, right? And he's just chilling on a boat.
Having tea. Literally having tea.
What if this MFer, mofo, right, has a slimy ass devil fruit, which lets him be in 2 places at once, or send out like a autonomous golem, sort of like Moria's shadow, right?
Okay.
So that's option 1. Option 1 in my mind is it's a devil fruit related to him, right?
Because the thing is that in order to control the Seraphim, it has to be a Vegapunk or
a Gorosei.
A Gorosei.
Yes.
And if it is a Gorosei, we're cheering.
Yeah, because it means he's finessing if it's him.
Yeah.
Right? But the thing is, like I said, because the ships are still on the way, I don't think it's actually his real body, if that makes sense. It's sort of like if he's Saturn the god, it's kind of like Hermes the messenger. You know what I mean? It's like he's got like a Moria-esque shadow ability, or maybe even Moria's fruit, or a superior version of Moria's fruit, for all we know.
I mean, there's also the idea that it could be actually him, and the clone is the one that's on the ship.
True.
The clone is like literally just there to be like so that people like as a distraction, basically.
So this is where we get into some interesting stuff, right? Continuing on about the shadow, I'm going to jump around a little bit in this chapter, but I'm only going to talk about the stuff relating to this shadow at the moment in my thoughts, right? So, option number 1, it's a Gorosei member, and he's either shown up or he's using a devil fruit, right?
Yeah.
Option number 2, if we scroll down a little bit, and we get to the scene with Atlas, Chopper, and Robin, they're cloning organs. Right?
Yeah.
So they're not just cloning people, but they're cloning organs. Which means they've got a bunch of pods around here with potential clones in them. Right?
True.
So what if that shadowy figure is either a clone of Saturn, which could make sense, or every single one of the Vegapunk clones looks different. It could be an alternative failed clone of Vegapunk, because we don't know when these clones were made, right? We also know his first successful clone was Stussy, but before that he could have had unsuccessful clones. And we also know that Stussy is familiar with Egghead, therefore she's been here, meaning like he potentially even made her on this island. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it could just be like, it looks sort of like Saturn, but it's actually like a failed clone of Vegapunk. and the Vegapunks could think it's been inactive or dead or secured somewhere in the island, and they're not even registering that it counts as a Vegapunk when giving orders to Seraphim. And it could have broken out, and this is sort of like a Frankenstein turning on its creator.
Okay. More out there, but I could see it. Like, I don't think it's impossible.
Well, okay, my reasoning for thinking that is the chapter's name is the Labostratum Death Game, right? And we got Vegapunk, the greatest scientist ever, and everyone loves him, right?
Hmm?
But we haven't had a narrative of like a creation turned against its creator. Like, the closest thing we've gotten to that in the story, arguably, right, is the likes of Sanji and Judge. And it's not even that he turned against his creator, it's just he didn't follow the dogma. You know?
Yeah, true.
So, if it's that storyline, it makes a lot of sense as well, because later on, obviously, you've got the Seraphim that are betraying Vegapunk or turning on Vegapunk, whether it's because this thing gave them orders or another reason, right? It's very, like, they're trying to give the idea of creations turning against creator. You know what I mean? So, like, I'm looking at this from the option of, it's like, the chapter starts with a Gorosei member, and we've got a silhouette that looks like a Gorosei. So it could be that thematical line. Or it's the chapter's about creations turning against their creators. They're going to have a situation, because this chapter proves that it was none of the Vegapunks, because every single Vegapunk's accounted for and has been accounted for this entire time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, if this thing here grabbing this camera is a Vegapunk, you know, it's like, oh, okay, it's fine, it's not it. You know what I mean? Like, it's not one of the ones we're following, because everyone's split up and accounted for, right?
Yeah.
Option number 3 is it's a very badly done silhouette, but it's actually the Kuma Seraphim, the S-Bear. And that's its bucket hat. And
S-Bear, okay.
And a different Vegapunk gave it orders off screen. And so all the shenanigans that we're like trying to figure out who the traitor is actually the Seraphim starting to turn on us. And we have no real leads to know which Vegapunk is the bad guy.
Yeah, that's actually... S-Bear is a pretty good one.
The only thing is that I don't like about the S-Bear thing is I brought up a picture of S-Bear side by side with that thing when I was doing my reaction. And that silhouette's missing the bear ears that come off the side of the Kuma hat.
Okay.
So it could be a bad silhouette, like, honestly, but it's like it's close enough that I could see it being like, oh my god, that's the thing. You know what I mean?
I can see it, yeah.
Yeah. And the last option that I have, right, is there is no Vegapunk traitor. The Seraphim have evolved to not need to listen to orders.
Yeah, that's always a option.
And they're taking the initiative themselves because they've been created for the world government, and their creator is now turned against the world government. So where Stussy sides with her creator, they side against.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Those are my 4 thought processes of what's actually like a possibility for this twist at this point in time. I don't know if you've got another, like, have you looked at this in another way?
Oh, I think that's pretty well it. Like, that's the thing is, like, I was thinking kind of it's not going to be as simple as just like it's one of the Vegapunks. Because like they're alluding to that obviously, but when you think about it, it doesn't really make sense.
And we haven't known them long enough to have it feel like a shock.
Yeah, and like in this chapter, we have it kind of confirmed that it's not the evil one. So, there's no reason for it to be anything else other tan the evil one. And even if it was the evil one, I would just say like it's a bit of a like it would be it's cliche.
And if it's Shaka, it's kind of like his reaction at the end, like his reaction to them taking out the cameras, and his reaction at the end of the chapter is kind of like, okay, you seemed really shook. and expressive for someone that we can't see the face of, but all right, I guess
Yeah.
we're just faking it. You know what I mean? Which, by the way, I'd like to point out I was correct that X on the screen is when a camera goes out. So we saw last chapter 2 X's on the screen. This makes a third. So 3 of, I think, like 7 of the cameras have been taken out. Which comes to the next point. Not just have the cameras gone out, communications, the radio signals have gone out for all of them.
Yeah, that is true.
Right? Which seems, again, like it's more tech-based, if that makes sense. Right? We haven't seen the final few Seraphim yet. They may not even be on the island, right? But, like, when it comes to radio signals and that, I want to just point out from a healthy standpoint, Doflamingo, his string when in Birdcage was strong enough to cut radio signals so people couldn't, like, communicate inside and outside of the barrier. Right?
Yeah.
So it's like, I could see, there's no setup for it yet, but, like, you could later on turn out, oh, the island's been, like, because we don't see the outside of the island here. The whole island's been put in a bird cage under the Dofi Seraphim. The Flamingo Seraphim. You know what I mean?
True, yeah.
Again, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense yet because there's no setup for it. But, like, that's one explanation. Otherwise, it's, like, tech sabotage, which is, like, still leaning towards someone that's got familiarity with the island. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, the thing is that unless they want to throw, like, there's 2 traders, actually, it has to be someone who can control the Seraphim.
Yeah.
Because now we have, like, another layer to it. So they could pull the whole, it's actually 2 different people, one controlling the Seraphim and one's doing the other thing. But I think it's more likely that it's, like, same person doing both. That's the thing, is that we don't really know. It could just be...
It is always possible as well. It's something really stupid, like there's a Blackbeard pirate on the island with Sherry, like a simple infiltration tactic, and they're just sabotaging stuff.
True.
You know what I mean? But like that doesn't really lead to any understanding of to why the Seraphim are moving. So it's like, if that was the case, it'd have to be 2 separate issues. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I guess, yeah.
Yeah. We get our first map as well. Oh, I love maps. I love maps in One Piece. We get our first map of the Egghead facility, the upper stratum, right? We find out that it's 5 stories, 4 floors, and 1 dome, with a building A, B, and C, right? And we've lost level 3 and upwards for buildings B and C, right? And then that's where we start to cut around. We get the first group, which is Edison, Brooke, and Nami. And Nami finds the fact that Vegapunk's able to make man-made diamonds, which she is just enthralled with. But the fact that she can make the fact that Vegapunk can make man-made diamonds, I've got a few questions with this, actually.
Yeah. For it.
So the Seraphim is supposed to be the accumulation of all of Vegapunk's best tech.
Oh, no.
Right?
Yeah. I don't think it's going to bear out the way that you're thinking it's going to bear out.
What do you think I'm going to say?
You're going to say they have some kind of diamond ability, or they can be made of diamonds or something.
Well, I was going to say, I mean, it's very possible they've got diamonds in them. Like, you know, they could have different abilities based with diamond, right? But the process of making diamond is superheating stuff, like carbon, right? And compressing it.
Or like putting heaps of pressure on it, yeah.
So maybe they've got some ability that they can use to do like super pressure. If they, again, it's hard because they're a bio science, not necessarily an engineered science like that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Um, but I'm just saying it is possible because one thing that I haven't seen that I would actually be really interested to see is the pacifistas shoot one of their lasers, right? And catch the laser beam because we saw that Atlas can physically interact with the light and turn light tangible to touch, right?
Yeah.
You know how all the pacifistas shoot lasers? The light lasers?
Yeah.
I mean, could you imagine the Mihawk one? If his sword gets broken, if he shoots a laser and then catches it, and then shoots a crossguard and catches it, and makes like a Kizaru-esque light sword?
Yeah, that would be pretty nice.
Yeah. At this point in time, it's just like, we're seeing a little bit more of like the side project tech. And by the way, right? If he can make man-made diamonds and stuff like that, why are they scrapped for cash? Why do they need to loot so much?
Yeah, good point.
Like, it's either this is way too cost ineffective, right? Or they're just full of shit. You know what I mean? And it's a little hard to tell which is which. You know?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so Nami robs the place blind. And they're like, oh, I guess we're gonna leave anyway. But like, shit, you didn't need to rob us. Then we get over to the part that I touched on before, but we get Chopper, Atlas, and Robin, and they're going through, and I see. Okay, I'll read it off. So your face is like a mask. Yep, I can replace any part of my body whenever I need, which means Atlas is full-blown cyborg, if I'm understanding that correctly. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like a full-on robot, yeah.
Or that's the future for you. I wonder where are these Vegapunks? Those are man-made organoids. They'll be indispensable for the doctors of the future. Well, you can actually grow new organs like that? That's amazing. I thought these were just Vegapunk's organs and someone chopped him to pieces. You're so scary. So if she's not a robot, it could be that they fixed her eye because they've just got a clone of her eye sitting around. And they do the old Naruto throw an eye in trick.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But going back to that theory before, right? They've got organs, and they don't call them regular organs. They call them organoids, right? Because they're cloned, but they also they seem like sort of like they can still be shaped into whatever they want. If that makes sense.
Getcha.
They're not shaped like any specific organ. Like it's not like we're looking at a heart or a lung. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
What if one of these things, if left for too long, grows itself into its own person?
Like from an organ into an entire being?
Yeah.
Okay, what would be the ramifications of that?
The traitor.
Is an organ?
Like an organoid that's evolved into a person and broken free, potentially.
Oh, that's wild.
It's very Cell from Dragon Ball. You know what I mean?
Sure.
I don't know. It's a possibility. Like at this point in time, we don't really get horror in One Piece, but I'm kind of hoping that this arc sort of slips into sci-fi horror for a little bit, for a couple of chapters, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Just because I feel like it's very fitting for the aesthetic at the moment, and we don't really get that sort of treatment too often. You know what I mean? Like we got futuristic sci-fi when we first got here, but now it kind of needs to flip over and be sort of like sci-fi horror, and then probably dystopian sci-fi. You know what I mean? Shifting genres as the arc evolves and shit goes wrong. But we cut back. Another camera cuts out. Shaka can't get in contact with Edison this time. No one can contact anyone, and we get a full glimpse of the screens. And there's something really important here that I think I need to bring up. Right? There's 3 buildings, A, B, and C. Right?
Yeah.
And then there's the entrance to the buildings. Right?
Okay.
if you look at these screens, there's 3 screens and then one little screen off to the side on the right. Yeah?
Oh.
So I'm thinking, we know that building A is in the middle. And then say building C on the left and B on the right. And that little screen on the far right, if you actually have a look, the top left bubble is actually the main entrance where you phase through the walkway.
Yeah, okay, I see.
So 2 lights, like two cameras go off. One in building B and one in building C. So it's implied that there's 2 or more assailants at the moment in 2 different areas. Right? We see later on that there's S-Bear and S-Hawk making their way up to this room. Right? But that would imply they're in building A, not B and C. So I don't think we see the Boa one in building C, I think, which would probably mean in building building B at the moment is the Jimbei Seraphim, if that's who's taking out the lights. You know what I mean?
Right. Okay.
So we can sort of roughly imply where people are based on that, if those are going out because of the Seraphim. Right? And it also means using these cameras, we can sort of see where people are moving to based on where cameras are going out. Because there's still about 2 to 3 cameras in each building left. You know?
Yeah, I gotcha.
But yeah, then we sort of cut back. This main room that they're in is totaled. I swear it wasn't this totaled before. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
it's true.
It
like
looks
a
munted.
bit of. I mean, I think. Yeah, I think it's fair. I don't think it's like they've done any extra damage. Yeah, it definitely does look a bit more.
I don't think you've really seen it from that angle, mind you. So, if on building C we have the Boa Seraphim, that means on building B we would have the Jimbei Seraphim, right? Based on that logic I used before. Meaning next chapter, Sanji's group is probably about to run in with Jimbei into Seraphim Jimbei. So we might actually get to see how strong one of these Seraphim are against the originals. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Just like in terms of like good setup happening. You know what I mean? Clearly we don't see it this chapter. Also, I love how Sanji's immediately like, "You're a Big Mom's tea party, right? Can I be your loyal dog?" And Susie's like, "Shit, yeah, you can, simp. Alright, just do whatever the shit I say." Right? This was not the dynamic I was expecting, but I love it. Right? I love it.
I mean, that would be Stussy though, right? Like her whole underground thing is like basically profiting off of people like Sanji.
Yeah, and then the funniest thing about it as well, it's like Dufeld being like, "How old are you, huh? How many decades ago were you born?" And she was like, "Screw you, old man," jabbing him with a fork and a knife and stuff like that, right? And Sanji's just like, "You're so beautiful, you're so pretty, oh!" You know what I mean? Like, he's just throwing her, so she's just like, "Shit, yeah, I like this one. This one's a keeper." Which I like. But yeah, like I said, we've got this group here traveling around. We don't see them again this chapter, but it's pretty damn likely, based on where everyone else is at the end of the chapter, that they're about to run into the Jimbei Seraphim, right? But this is also something very interesting, right? We cut to 3rd floor building C, the left side. We have York and Lilith, as well as Usopp and Frankie, and they come across Pythagoras, right?
Yeah.
Meaning this is the guy that attacked Pythagoras. Yeah? Like in this area?
Yeah.
York sees Seraphim Boa and goes up to be like, "Oh my god, you're so cute." And Seraphim Boa turns her to stone. Right?
Yes.
That Seraphim Boa is not the silhouette we saw on this same side at the beginning of the chapter.
Okay.
So
what are you thinking?
the Boa didn't attack York, or at least not alone. Oh, sorry, Pythagoras. It didn't attack Pythagoras, at least not alone.
Yeah, right. Because
Right.
it couldn't have been in that spot as well.
Yeah, so the Boa could have been in that spot, but it's not the silhouette we saw, because they're very different. Like,
Yeah.
very different silhouettes. Right? So, just seeing Boa on this side isn't a solution as to who that person was at the beginning of the chapter. Right? And when we finish going through this, I'll link back around, because I've got a bit more evidence as to why I think it's potentially the Gorosei member. Alright? But we have York turned to stone, which proves that, just like the real Boa, Seraphim Boa can turn people of any gender to stone. And you don't
Even robots.
And you don't necessarily need to be attracted to her, because she's just like, you're so cute. You know what I mean?
Well, I think that's it though. I think she used the puppy to give it like a cuteness or like a love, because it's love, right? So I think she used the puppy to make it like in love.
Wait, what puppy?
Then she sent a puppy out, and then York was like bending down and like patting like a little puppy.
No, she was
she got
bending down
turned
and
into
patting
stone.
Boa.
It was a little dog, wasn't it?
No, it was Boa.
Hell,
It's just York's
was
huge.
that little?
York's
I
huge.
just got the perspective completely messed up.
Yeah, dude, York, and remember, Boa, that Seraphim Boa is over 6 foot.
Yeah, York is massive.
Bruh, she got them big mummy legs. Like, she got legs for days. Right? No wonder she needs to eat so much, though. Fuck, the size of her shits would be the size of Boa. Yeah, she turns her to stone, right? One thing that I found really interesting is the Boa immediately kicked the stone statue over. And from Amazon Lily, we know normally that kills them because it shatters the stone. Right? I think the only thing working in York's favor here is that she's so big that maybe she didn't shatter. Because the amount of stone was just so massive.
Right, okay. It
Like,
really does seem like they're trying to like keep a lot of them alive. I would have expected that a lot of that they would all just be dying, but like they repaired one of them, and now this one got turned to stone but didn't like shatter. Weird, right? I would have thought they'd just be dying like flies here.
Well, it depends on how many of them are leaving, or which one's actually leaving with us, because that might be the plot twist.
I thought the whole idea was like Vegapunk's gonna die here, so it's like scary. Like I thought like they would all just be getting completely wrecked, and then it would basically be like they're all gone. It's only Vegapunk left.
What if? Well, I mean, what happens if they do a bunch of fake out deaths, bring people back, and then they actually die, but the real Vegapunk dies, and one of the clones is left to travel with us?
Would be pretty intense. But wouldn't it be that if the real Vegapunk dies, the fruit leaves him, and then the system that they were all tied to breaks?
Well, for them to be able to sync up their knowledge, right? Wouldn't they need green blood? Just like the Seraphim?
Yeah, true.
So all of the Vegapunks probably have green blood somewhere running through them.
They would need green blood and the fruit in their possession.
Well, the green blood itself, like, it almost tricks the devil fruit, or the DNA from the devil fruit, into, like, thinking the user's alive in that regard, doesn't it? That's how I'm sort of interpreting it. Like, you can't clone the fruit and give it to multiple people, but you can take the DNA from the person that has the fruit, and if someone is compatible with that DNA, namely a clone of the exact same person, they can take that DNA and use it. Although, I guess that's not entirely true because you got Seraphim Jinbei that has Senior Pink's fruit, so I guess it is like all you need is just like a bit of their blood synthesized into this green blood, and they can use the devil fruit even if the original user's alive, because Vegapunk confirmed that Senior Pink's still alive.
Yeah.
So if Vegapunk dies, they should still all be able to use the fruit.
Oh, true.
It just means it'll also spawn somewhere else as well for another person to use potentially.
Yeah, okay.
Potentially. Like, again, with nothing's set in stone with this, which is good and bad. You know what I mean? Like, being a scientific-based arc, it's kind of like, this is the time where you'd think there'd be a bunch of rules.
Like, it's also, like, absurd science. It's like, you know, like, we use nanophotons to create a stun gun, but no one knows what that actually means. Because it doesn't make any sense, really.
It's just a bunch of buzz
like,
science words.
Yeah, we're never gonna, like, necessarily know for sure. Unless they choose to just, like, outright describe it. Even when they outright describe it, it won't really make sense.
Okay, so, are you ready for some juicy shit here?
Let's do it.
So, Lilith is like, what? A Seraphim? Why are you here? You shouldn't be able to move on your own. I command you to stop. And it goes to attack her. Right? And as we know, you know how people are like, oh, it's really stupid that if you're on the same rank, you can't give them in, like, contradicting order? Obviously, the reason that was set up in their design is specifically for this arc to play out like this with the Guess Who for the Vegapunk trader.
Yeah.
So it's like an intentionally done thing. Oda didn't just do it because he was dumb, right?
It is also intentionally stupid.
Yeah. But that's also the arrogance of Vegapunk, isn't it?
Yeah.
But yeah, so the Boa Seraphim shoots this laser, does a big, massive explosion, knocks everyone down, which, oh my god, I didn't even realize. That may have destroyed York.
Why?
Because York didn't fall down with everyone else. York was turned to stone, and then there was that massive explosion.
Yeah, true, actually.
Although I think York is behind Boa. I can't tell if she's behind or in front. Because when you scroll down a little bit further, you can see Boa there on the ledge, and there's definitely no York. And York was massive compared to Boa. So maybe York did die there.
Yeah.
I can't tell, to be honest. Just rereading it, I didn't think of it like that the first time I watched it. I was just like, oh, she's turned to stone, it's fine. But looking at this now, she may have actually been destroyed.
That is true.
Right, well, I got no further comments on that bit, just because it's like, shit, I just sort of, like, came to them.
Yeah, to be honest, like, I kind of half expect this entire island to blow up by the end of it, so unless we're gonna have a whole, she gets unfrozen from stone by the Boa Seraphim, I'm thinking she's dead regardless.
Yeah. Which is kind of why I feel like Oda just made a bunch of Vegapunks, just to be like, he was like, yeah, I'm gonna also fair
Yeah, I'm gonna get wrecked.
But yeah, everyone falls down. It's freaking hilarious that they use their anti-gravity chutes, except for Usopp, who just doesn't know how they worked, because he wasn't, like, a tech. He wasn't, like, invested in the tech, so he just falls face first. Obviously, like, Lilith is, like, shitting herself. Because, like, Frankie's like, it's no good, we can't reach them. What? Quit joking around, we won't be able to stand a chance in a fight. We designed them to be the most powerful beings around. Right? So Lilith is shitting herself here. Like, absolutely shitting herself. Which, fair enough, because these things can fly. They've got super, like, defense. They've got, like, a Kizaru level attack, plus the skills and abilities of the original Devil Fruit user. It's like...
The interesting thing is, like she's there with, who is it, Frankie with her and shit?
Yeah.
She's, like, outright just like, yeah, no, we're not fighting this. We will just lose.
This thing's... And remember, this same Lilith was, like, Straw Hat Luffy, Zoro, Robin, they're not that bad.
Yeah.
And Shaka had to be like, bitch, they're a younger crew. Ishne
Yeah.
under Straw Hat Nay. You know? But then we have Zoro yelling out to Luffy, give me a hand, Luffy. Huh? Zoro, what's up? And Shaka and Luffy come back into the room to see Zoro facing down against S-Snake and S-Bear, right? And looking at S-Bear here, you see what I mean by the ears wouldn't exist on that silhouette,
Yes.
right? But other than that, it's pretty similar looking, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
The only problem is as well is like the position of where that would be going on is where Boa is, not where Kuma is now. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like potentially it just is like it doesn't matter. It was meant to be Kuma, or it's another person altogether. You know what I mean? But that being said as well, we've got a rough idea about how big these things are. So these things are probably about the same size as the actual people at this point. Because Mihawk's Seraphim was about 6 foot, right? Which Mihawk's is like 6'1" or 6'2". And then obviously Kuma is like huge compared to Mihawk, which, okay, they seem about the same size as the actual real life ones. But, right? Shaka gives them an order, right? Zoro mentions they were specifically targeting CP0, right?
Yep.
Letting them die in cuffs would leave a bad taste in my mouth. And S-Bear and S-Hawk do a combo attack. Look at the combo attack.
Yeah.
So it's a like pacifista laser explosion with a sword slash going around it. Yeah.
Sword slash. Yeah.
Is that not Saturn?
Like the look of it.
Yeah. The look of the attack is the planet Saturn with its ring.
Yeah. Fair.
So we have a potential identical silhouette for Saturn at the beginning of the chapter, right? Giving orders to Seraphim that are now doing attacks that look identical to the planet Saturn. Right? And rewinding it, so we'll finish this last bit in a second, but like scrolling back to the very top of the chapter and just you can take my word for this if you don't want to go back to it, right? But going back to that silhouette, right? In the first panel, so on the first page, on the third panel, right? The please respond one. You see that?
Yeah.
Bottom left, do you see the sound effect?
Okay.
Clink, clank.
Yeah.
Right? Last chapter, so that clink clanking isn't the explosion and it isn't rubble, because last chapter, there was a clink clanging when the person was walking up to Pythagoras. Right?
Okay.
Do you know what would make a clink clank sound?
A robot.
Maybe. It could. Although, mind you, when the Seraphim move later on, do you hear any clink clanking noises?
Nope.
When Atlas moves, do you hear a clink clanking noise? Or any of the Vegapunks? Do you know when you do hear those noises?
When?
When someone has a walking aid. For example, Fujitora with his sword.
By that same logic, when we saw Fujitora walking, it wasn't clink clanking.
It was.
Was clink clanking?
Yeah. That's a sound effect used for people with like a walking aid in One Piece.
Interesting.
Do you know who has a walking aid out of the Gorosei?
Saturn?
Just Sat.
Okay.
He's got that big wooden walking stick.
Yeah.
So, look, if this isn't Saturn, I'm sitting here going, oh, you're a dick. Because you you've done way too much coincidentally or on purpose, whatever it is. Like if it's a red herring, it's a red herring, right? But it's like, dude, from the silhouette to the subordinates' attacks resembling it to the literal sound effect of the walking stick that's very specific, it's very odd. Am I right?
Yeah, sure.
So I'm sort of like in the ballpark at the moment where I'm waiting for confirmation on it, but I'm sort of like leaning back, just like, oh my god, if that is Saturn, this man's about to be a beast because he's almost soloing this entire organization without even setting foot on the island yet.
Yeah.
Just from espionage. Which, do you know what's important to remember? Who are the leaders of CP0?
The world government, the Gorosei.
So, technically, they're the ruling class of the espionage groups of the world.
Yeah.
So they should be setting the standard or the precedent of espionage in a way. At least some of them. Right?
Yeah.
I'm telling you, I reckon this dude's got a devil fruit and it allows him to like spawn an identical copy of himself. Like on an island that maybe he can sense it with his observation hut. He can, like, wherever that range is, he can activate it. You know what I mean?
Mm.
Or alternatively, do you know what would be a really interesting take on it?
Mm.
So specifically, this is two separate things, right? This is a fact. Next will be a theory. Okay, it's a fact that the two Seraphim here aren't targeting Luffy, Zoro, or Shaka.
Yes.
They're targeting CP0. Right?
Right.
So these are wanting to eliminate CP0. If something is wanting to eliminate CP0, right? We've got to look at it in a few different, a potential few different perspectives. Perspective number one is Lucci and Kaku got their ass beaten and Stussy betrayed. So if Saturn is able to have a presence on the island, maybe he's like, they failed, let's eliminate them before we do some really crazy shit on the island. That's a potential. That's a potential. Potential number two is it's just a Vegapunk that's the quote unquote traitor, and whatever Vegapunk it is, they're just like trying to save their own ass by trying to get them to take out CP0, and it doesn't mean they're necessarily trying to get the other Vegapunks. Although it's really odd that Pythagoras was targeted and then York. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, like, the fact that Vegapunks were being attacked is like, okay, that's odd. When CP0 seems to be the targets at the moment, right? Alternatively, this arc started with when CP0 showed up, they asked Lilith, right? Do you know about the missing world government ships that have been disappearing in the area? And she's like, no, I got no idea about it. Right?
Right.
And at the time, we were like, oh, well, that's just clearly because she sunk them and didn't want to let them know. Right?
Yeah.
What if they didn't sink them? What if she never touched them? And the quote-unquote traitor, whatever that entity is what's been destroying the world government ships at the moment.
Interesting. The weird thing, though, is that it's also screwing up Vegapunk, right? So it's not an ally of Vegapunk, but it's also attacking the world government.
Yep.
And what's the point of it? Is it doing that?
Who knows? I mean, do you know what could be a really crazy take? Do you know what we don't see a lot of in One Piece?
What?
Mind control. one possibility that no one's really thought of, because obviously everyone's just like, oh, the Seraphim have just got to take orders from the Gorosei or from Vegapunk, right?
Yeah.
Say for, like, this is a huge left, like, a huge, like, out of nowhere random theory, right? But say, like, Blackbeard did send envoys here, and you've got Shiryu here who's invisible moving around, right?
Yeah.
What if someone like Alvaro Pizarro has like a, hypnotize? Oh, I mean, we know that Lafitte has a hypnotize fruit, like an ability that lets him hypnotize and has wings. But like, what if someone's got like an actual like mind control fruit or something like that, and they've just taken over the Seraphim, and they're just trying to wipe out everyone and just take everything for themselves?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, it's always possible.
but anyway, this chapter ends la-di-da. This chapter ends with the Seraphim attacking. Lucci goes, they want us dead? That's no good, Seraphim scamps. Hey, Roanoa, Straw Hat. How about we let bygones be bygones for now? We could form a temporary alliance. The two of us would be much more useful out of these cuffs. And Zoro and Luffy look fucking disgusted. They're mortified about the thoughts of teaming up with them. First things first, I love this face. This was like so much needed humor in this chapter, right?
Yeah.
Number two, I now don't know if they're actually going to let them out because they asked. If that makes sense. Like,
Right.
I could see them being like, you know what? Because you want to get out, we're just not going to do it, and it'd be a gag. Because, like, again, just talking about like the parallels for Lucci to Eni's lobby, right? He got betrayed, and then he got betrayed just like Luffy got betrayed, right?
Yeah.
Then Luffy made it to the climax of the arc, and it was like, free my ally. And Lucci's just like, fuck no, fight me to the death. Right? Lucci here being like, free me and free Kaku. We can help here. They might just turn around and just like, do you know what? Because you asked, we're better off leaving you here. You know what I mean? Just as a gag.
Yeah.
But I gotta ask, what are your thoughts? What were your thoughts on this scene? What are your thoughts on this chapter? What do you think is gonna happen next week?
I think it's interesting because I would have thought, oh yeah, they're asking, so obviously they're going to get let out, and that's going to lead to more drama and all that stuff. I think they will get let out, just because like I haven't seen enough of Lucci. Like, all we've seen so far is a quick little bout. I feel like we need to see him actually like get pushed, kind of deal, and then the only problem is that he's not redeemable.
All right, can I put 3 thoughts in the mind here? If they let him out and they fight, who fights and who teams up with who? Is it Kaku Zoro, Luffy Lucci? And if so, or is it like Luffy Zoro and Lucci Kaku? You know what I mean?
No, I think they'll team up together, like with their opponents. Luffy or Lucci.
Luffy Lucci, Zoro Kaku. Okay, that's a perfect time for Lucci, for Zoro and Kaku to sort of show off their swordsmanship against the Seraphim Mihawk. Yeah?
Yeah.
But do you know what's fucking mortifying? What happened? Ignoring Thriller Bark, because Thriller Bark wasn't an intended destination, right? What essentially happened to Luffy after Eni's lobby? Sabody.
I don't know. Sabody.
Where Kuma blipped away the Straw Hats.
Okay.
Well, we have a Kuma here with Kuma's Pawpaw ability. could Lucci face a version of Sabati here, where Lucci gets, like, Kaku gets scattered away. You know what I mean? And Lucci's left alone. And Zoro sort of comes in the spot that Rayleigh held at Sabati. Just as like an odd inverse. Because realistically, that Kuma, and we know that they're supposed to fight like they're normal people, right? That Kuma should be sending people away, should he not?
Can the Kuma send people away? Doesn't he have... You talking about Esper?
Yeah, Esper.
He doesn't have Kuma's fruit.
Yes, he does.
He has... What's his name's fruit?
No?
Has the swim fruit.
No, that was S Shark.
Oh, yeah, true.
Esper was specifically stated to have Kuma's Pawpaw ability because it's actually how CP made it off the ship and onto the island.
Yeah, true.
So that Esper right now, as scary as the Mihawk Seraphim is, that Esper is probably the scariest person on this island right now.
To be fair, though, we don't know how the power works, right? Like, it could be if you have good enough Haki, you just sort of negate it.
Okay, in which case Luffy's exempt. What about the others?
What?
Well, I would argue that Luffy, like, the ability to not be moved by a devil fruit, right? Or affected by a devil fruit, seems to be more or less like almost a Yonko level feat, right?
Right.
Luffy's a Yonko, so I can safely be like, oh, okay, Luffy can not get affected. No different to Law versus Blackbeard, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But the others, I don't know if I can give them something like that. I'd have to see it to believe it, you know what I mean?
I think it would have to just basically be like pure plot.
It's possible. Definitely possible. Do you know what else is also very possible? So remember when we first saw CP0? I need to make a clear distinction here, right? Remember how in the original translation it was like, oh, this S-Bear is a problem child?
Yep.
Yeah, I went back and reread that chapter. That is not what they say at all. That was not the official translation for it. In the official translation, Lucci just goes, great, we've got to return this brat to Egghead. Brat referring to it because it's a kid.
Yes.
So my hopes and dreams of Kuma's real consciousness being in this S-Bear's body is kind of out the window with that translation being cleared up, right?
Fair, yeah, true.
But that still means that this thing's probably just as ruthless as the real Kuma. So I'm sort of looking at this right now, just kind of being like, oh shit. Oh, sorry, your headset's buzzing out again, my dude. That sounds better. Oh, it's back. That is better. Are you just muting yourself?
Just unplugging my mic.
Fair enough.
How's it now?
Yeah. Oh.
Okay.
Okay. I can hear it, but it's not coming through on the stream, so I'm fine with that. Maybe I need to do mine. Alright. Yeah, that's fine there. That's fine there.
That was because I unplugged it.
Okay, so what are your thoughts then?
On?
So next week, do you think? Obviously, you said Lucci and Kaku team up with Strides. What are your predictions for next chapter at this point?
I hope we see, what's his name again? The Marines. I hope we see the
Saturn.
Marines that are outside on the Saturn and that. Just as an update, I think even if Saturn is on the island, like that thing's true, and he's like a clone or whatever the hell, I think it would still make a lot of sense that we see him next chapter. Just to sort of like keep the meme alive of like, oh, he's still here though. Oh, he's still here. Because the thing is, like, some people could think that it's Saturn, but just think that he like has an ability to teleport, and since we saw him on the ship, he's teleported in. So seeing him again next chapter would kind of confirm to people, oh no, don't worry, he's still on the ship. It must not be him.
Only for
there's
it to
a
be
big
him.
twist at the end. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think we might see them. Maybe they don't necessarily have to do much, just like a little bit of a dialogue. Maybe just to say like, okay, guys, we're going to move in now. Yeah, and then other than that, I don't know. Like we've split up again, right? So we have a lot more perspectives now. So we could just do the whole Wano arc thing of just like a little bit of everyone's perspective in each chapter.
That is definitely true. I've just gone back. Where? Wait, where the hell did that Pythagoras explosion happen? Hang on. I thought it was like at the end of the chapter, but... Sorry, I'm just on last week's chapter at the moment, just so I can confirm that clink clank sound again. There we go. Yeah, okay. So last chapter as well, right? Just after the Bonnie flashback stuff, you've got York just before the big news Morgan stuff. We got Pythagoras walking. Wow, they really totaled the place, even though they were born here. Stella, where did you get to? Right? And then behind him, in the silhouette, you hear clink, and arguably you can see a foot. Right? Okay. And then we get a reaction shot of him turning around with the sound effect in that section, clank. And then the explosion. Right? So coming back to this week's, right? Do you know what could be very interesting? If it is a clone of the Gorosei, imagine, because do you know what's odd? There was that massive explosion, right?
Right.
Then this chapter, we hear the clink clank again, and we see the silhouette, and we see the hand reach up for the transponder snail, and there's another massive explosion.
Okay.
So whatever this golem ability is, it allows like actual like detonation.
Yeah.
Doesn't it?
Yes.
So it's like a combustible
It's
human.
not just a punch. It's like got more powers than just that.
Yeah.
Or he's carrying bombs with him, I guess.
Yeah. I would say this is probably more reminiscent of Mr. Five's fruit. The bomb fruit. Where on contact with your skin, stuff just explodes.
I guess we have had other stuff. So like Mr. Five's fruit was like his body's liquids. Whereas we have had the martial arts guy who could explode like with punches and stuff.
Well, actually, Mr. Five actually wasn't liquids. It was any part of his body can explode. It's just
I thought it was like his sweat and his boogers and shit.
every part of his body.
It was just like he had sweat on his hand.
His sweat, his boogers, his hair, his breath, all of it could explode.
Okay.
But do you know what the funny thing is? He just got taken out before he could use it. He, like, dude.
Also, like, what really is an explosion?
Yeah, dude got fodderized pretty badly. But it's also very important to note that he was never captured by the Marines, and he's free to this day.
Right.
So it's not like a green blood of him. Although it is possible that it's a green blood of Dofi's Gladius, the pop dude. But the thing about that is, I don't see like a thing like expanding and then popping here. This is just an outright explosion.
I mean, here's the thing. If it's the Gorosei's ability, if it's not like a Seraphim or something like that, then I'm thinking it's like the Gorosei has like a hectic ability, and this is just like a small part of it. Like part of his ability allows him to clone himself. Another part of his ability, like, you know what I mean, like how Luffy is like he's rubber, but when he's awakened, he's also like freedom and shit like that.
Wait. All right, hear me out on this. Right. First things first. Are you looking at the silhouette?
Of which one? Which silhouette?
The one at the beginning of the chapter, the one with the hand.
Yeah.
Right. So, first things first. That silhouette there. It's a hand, right?
Right.
It's not Shaka because he's clearly watching it, right?
Yeah.
So any of the Vegapunks that don't have a real human hand are immediately excluded from being blamed. Right?
Okay.
It looks very distinct. So I would say the only Vegapunk whose silhouette could be even confused as that is Atlas. Right? But looking at it right now that you've seen the S-Bear again, do you think it is the S-Bear? Or because it doesn't have the ears in the silhouette and it's got a pretty clear outline, do you actually think it's a Gorosei or something else?
What silhouette am I looking at now?
The same one, the one with the hand reaching out to the camera.
What was that shadow?
So, like...
The panel where he's like, what was that shadow? And
yeah,
then you see
yeah. So looking at that clearly now, no ear on it like the Kuma.
Yeah,
clones,
true.
Right?
You can see the hair for sure.
And it looks like the dreads, right?
Yeah, it does.
And it's clearly a hand with a thumb and an index finger and a palm, right? So any of the Vegapunks that have got robotic hands, so Pythagoras and Edison, completely out.
But why do they not have an index finger?
Well, they've got three fingers. They've got claws.
Yeah, okay.
Right? So they're immediately excluded from blame for this, right? And obviously everyone else is already taken into consideration and accounted for, right? But it's just like an extra bit of knowledge to be like, those people can be double cleared. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
What if, in a really red hot take, what is Blackbeard's biggest claim to fame in your opinion?
Having more than one fruit.
And it's a shock to the world, right?
Yeah.
What if the Gorosei have more than one fruit? And that's how they're powerful. They're just maybe lesser fruits.
I could see it, but there would have to be an explanation, right?
Yeah, but it could be this...
to be, why does Blackbeard have it and they have it? Where's the connection between them, etc., etc.?
Yeah, because, like, the silhouette here, I mean, clearly it could just be silhouette, right? But last chapter, and then this chapter, we see it from the front, and it's all shaded. We see it from behind, it's all shaded, and we see it reaching for the camera, and it's all shaded, right?
Mm-hmm.
What if it's, like, a combination of, say, like, Mr. Five's Bomb Fruit and Moria's shadow ability?
Okay.
And we knew that with Moria's shadows, he could attach his shadow to other people's, right?
Yeah, right.
What if this thing got in here because it caught a ride in on CB0?
Yeah.
And the Gorosei was always going to come here, regardless of Luffy being here. Because it was about taking out Vegapunk. And taking control of Seraphim and stuff like that. So this was his advanced guard.
Okay. We're getting into some stretching, though.
Yeah? No. Oh, I mean, look, at this point in time, like, I feel like there's nothing we can do but stretch. Because it's just kind of like... We're living in the land of crazy science. You know what I mean? But at the same point in time, I'm looking at this thing and call it confirmation bias, but I cannot see another silhouette that we know of that's not that Gorosei right now. Can you?
No. But at the same time, it is like it could be a misnomer.
Yeah, it could be a red herring.
Okay, what I will say is that, to be honest, if we go to the ship and the Gorosei is still on the ship next chapter, that to me is even more evidence that it is him for some reason.
Yeah.
Because it's almost like, oh no, but it can't possibly be him because
it's like trying to make a double excuse for it.
Yeah. Whereas if we don't see him next chapter, I almost feel like it's like, I don't know, it could just, because people could believe that he just got off the ship and came and started attacking everyone between, now and then, like right away. So
I'm just scrolling through chapter 1073 because that's the one where the Gorosei member's introduced. Dude, I'm telling you, if you go back and you have a look at him front on here, not only is he carrying his cane, but it is like is so identical, eh? Like criminally so.
Yeah.
Hang on, I gotta bring the chapters up, like genuinely side by side to look at this, eh? Like the hat.
It'd be interesting if they're like self-exploding clones or something that he can just like spam out tons of.
Ooh, that'd be cool too. And it's not that he's
just like grabs the camera and then explodes. Because like the thing is that in the explosion there's nothing there. Right? Like as soon as the explosion is going off, it's gone.
You can't see it.
Grab the camera is gone.
Yeah. That's interesting. Ooh, what if it can reform? So it self-detonates and then reforms.
Yeah.
Because we know that that's possible because Baby 5 did it when she used to turn into a missile.
Yeah.
I'm of the same mindset of you at the moment that if next chapter we get to see an update with them, it's definitely got to do with them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But do you know what's really important to note? Thinking back on it, everyone in the Marines, like in the higher ups, and Gorosei were aware that they were already planning to assassinate Vegapunk, right?
Yep.
And we had that whole scene where when Akainu gets an update about Lucci engaging Straw Hat on the island, or about to, he's like, ugh, don't let him ruin the plan. Where's Kizaru? Has he already left? Right? And he's like, yeah, Kizaru's already on his way because they were already planning that whole army to be there regardless of Luffy. Yeah?
Yeah, that's true.
So it's also very likely that Gorosei member was already there prior to Luffy being known about being on the island, right?
Yeah.
How did they get the report that Luffy and Lucci engaged each other in combat?
I'm just assuming that they have like a information network, right?
Just like just like Denden Mushi and like Fodder called in what was happening?
Yeah, basically. Yeah.
It's possible.
Mission updates.
It's possible. But what I would say to that is it was only Lucci, Kaku, and Stussy that went up to the Labosphere when the like security dropped down. Right. Oh, actually no, Luffy fought Lucci earlier than that, didn't he? Down on the floor. Okay, no, they could have got the information then. I'm wrong on that. Oh, sorry, I was just trying to like paint the timeline there. to cement to myself. Because at this point in time, dude, I'm like so curious with what the hell's going on. Like, I actually really love how mysterious this is right now.
Yeah.
Like, is it weird to say that this is like taking the like some of the plot points that Oda tried to do in Wano and just doing them better?
I definitely think this is like better writing, right? Like it's like mystery and intrigue.
Yeah.
I do worry though that the One Piece fan base is more at this point in the story is just like, show us Luffy punching big things and show us Yonko's fighting, and you know what I mean. I worry that I'm even a little bit like that, where I'm just kind of like, oh, but I kind of want to see, Luffy and Lucci fight more.
I think it's been a healthy balance of mystery, reveals, and Luffy just jumping into fighting at full force, or close to it.
Yeah, it's definitely not been like stale in terms of combat,
dude.
For sure.
Do you like? I really shook myself. Do you know how many chapters we've been on Egghead?
How long?
I'm pretty sure we've only just sort of got 10 chapters.
Yeah, damn. A lot's happened.
Right.
That's the thing, though, right? Like, this is the final thing. We're just getting all the payoff right away. That's why. And the thing is, when we went into Egghead, I was kind of like, oh man, this is going to be boring. I kind of hope it's only like 10 chapters. Now I'm like, okay, this is interesting. It's a good story.
We've had 14 chapters on this arc. 14 chapters, and that's including like 2 half-chapter cutaways with Blackbeard.
Yeah.
So this has been a good arc, low key. Like, I've just been loving all of it. You know what I mean? I don't know. There's not really much else to talk to about this chapter. But at the same point in time, I'm like stuck in theorizing mode now, where I just like keep really looking over every little thing. And I'm like, there's stuff here, there's something here. I just don't know what it is, but I feel something sticking out. Does that make sense?
I think this is one of those chapters where it was kind of brief and not that much information, but it was also like a lot. And I reckon in the future, stuff that gets revealed is like, oh yeah, all the clues were in this chapter.
Yeah. Dude, 100%. Like I said, like just even breaking it down, even with the cover page, with the thematical implications of silhouettes, it was like, shit. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, I really want to know if York's dead.
Gotta say, this series is way better with like talking about the chapters and wondering what's gonna happen next and like being really engaged. I think if you were like a super casual viewer,
it would
just kind of went, oh, a new episode's out or a new chapter's out, I'll just read it. Yeah, it would just be kind of like, that's fine, but like not. You would actually probably think not much happens though.
Yeah,
which is like the opposite of what like most One Piece fans think, which is like everything happens.
That's it. Like, okay, to a casual fan, I can see why One Piece is kind of like, oh, it's okay. It's nothing too special. I'll watch it. It's fun, right? Because it's like, you don't understand the thematical meanings behind it, the emotive meanings behind it, and all that stuff. Like, for example, right, just even at the moment, right, have you seen the new art released for volume 105?
I haven't.
No? It's identical to volume 25.
Okay.
So it's an 80 volume difference. Right? Volume 25 was the first volume with 4 Yonkos on the cover, with Shanks, Blackbeard, Luffy, and Buggy.
Nice.
And it was that volume was like the Jaya meeting with Whitebeard and Shanks and Blackbeard's introduction and Luffy's first 100 mil bounty. Right? Whereas if you cut to volume 105, I'm pretty sure it's going to be like the Yonko bounty reveal and the end of Wano.
Yeah.
Which is like crazy how like a perfect 80 volume stretch hits that. You know what I mean? And obviously it's not planned. It's probably been like, he was just like looking at it and was like, yeah, do you know what? Thematically, this works really well to put this here. You know what I mean? But it's like, dude, there's too much of the series is just like cute little coincidences like that just make the enjoyment so much better. And it's something that hurts because like I seek that same level of sociopathic control in other series, and like One Piece, as much as I love the world of One Piece, right, and as much as I love One Piece, and I think it has the potential to be even better than it is, right? Like there's a few side stories that if they got told, I'd be like, right? But it's like, this is gonna sound blasphemous. It's the manga equivalent, I think, of Lord of the Rings. In terms of world building and stuff like that. It's not the same as Lord of the Rings. The difference is like One Piece does what Lord of the Rings does for 100 years. Lord of the Rings does it for 1,000, 2,000, 3,000. You know what I mean?
I can see it.
But it's like the way they go about it is like, it's identical way. In terms of like how crazy thought out the scope is. You know what I mean? And it's like, dude, I've just finished like season 1 of Demon Slayer, or just about to finish season 1 of Demon Slayer at the moment. And it's like, I'm really enjoying the story. And I've got someone that was like talking to me about it, and they were like, dude, it's amazing. The story's phenomenal, isn't it? And I'm like, dude, it's okay. Right?
Yeah.
And they're like, how can you say that? And I'm like, well, it's the same thing. It's just like, it's like, I love My Hero Academia. I watch and read My Hero Academia. I'm up to date. I do my reactions for it, right? And he's like, I'm like, dude, my overall rating for that series is probably like a 6 or a 7, right? And he's like, you own the manga. How can you say it's that bad? I'm like, no, you don't understand. Just because something's a 6 or a 7 doesn't mean it's bad. It's just like, when you start seeing stuff that's like higher up on that chain.
The thing, it depends on your standards, right? Like, a big thing is that, like, even just manga / anime in general, it's like a specific type of
Storytelling.
artistry. Yeah, and to a small extent, you have to consider that, like, it's not necessarily that, like
that
they
impressive.
have their own specific tropes. Yeah, they have their own specific tropes, and they have their own like way of doing things, which makes it so that if you either like love all the tropes and then it's like really awesome to you, like you're thinking about it as like a snooty like objective artistry kind of mindset, you'd probably just be like, it's all kind of bad.
Which is what probably I would argue makes One Piece the most impressive shonen at the moment, because not only has it been around long enough to actually set tropes itself, like it's been going for over 25 years. It is one of the series in shonen that established shonen tropes. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But at the same point in time, because Oda changes stuff so often, it stays fresh. For example, Gear 5 and the whole Looney Tunes aspect of it. And Oda being like, look, I'm sick of serious manga. I just want to goof around. Yeah. And it's like, that is so One Piece that it's One Piece. And it's really funny because it's like, people will be like, it ruined the series. And other people will be like, this is the best thing since sliced bread. And there's like, there's not a whole lot of response in between those two ideas. You know what I mean? Where it's like, you get to the point and you see Gear 5 and you're just like, oh my god, it's so dumb, it's so stupid, it's perfect. Right? Or you're like, there's no tension, it's ruined, this story's crap.
Mm-hmm.
But it's funny because it's like, the people that are like that, and they're like, oh, it came out of nowhere, it had no setup. It's like, I don't think you understand how goofy One Piece has been up until now. Like, while One Piece is like so stereotypically shonen that it is the forerunner of shonen, it also breaks all of shonen's tropes because it's like The Simpsons. It's been on the air for so long that it's just done all the plot lines. You know, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's suffering from success in that regard, right?
Yeah.
And I'm not just saying this to gush about One Piece because it's like for a lot of people, it's like 1,075 chapters, right? It's like, how many people do you know that are like refuse to watch it because it's so long?
Yeah.
Whereas my mindset of
Everyone that doesn't watch it, basically.
yeah, dude, and anyone that I know that doesn't watch it is just like, I don't want to invest it. It's too long. It's not worth it. I'm like, dude, I'm sorry. Like, any show that I know that it's got like 10 plus seasons, it's like, it probably was pretty good because it stayed on the air.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And that's the thing. Like it's big enough that you like literally can't cancel it.
But at the same,
It's pretty insane.
but
Like you can't cancel One Piece because like it would just get absolutely destroyed. And so I was thinking about this the other day, right? Is the problem is like a lot of different shows have like that 12 episode run cycle or the
Yep.
24 episode run cycle. And the reason is because they kind of have to do that because they need everything to come really, really quickly so that people stay super engaged in a story. So it's like always at a peak point because otherwise people lose interest and then they cancel the show because the views go down.
Yep.
Whereas One Piece is like the only series that can spend 200 like chapters and still not fight the final villain of the arc.
Yep.
It's like the only series that can do that because everyone else would stop watching and then they would cancel the show. And so like Oda's like able to actually craft these like really long, broad stories where they have like really incredible payoffs. Whereas every other series is like it's not even that like they're bad writers per se; they're just incapable of doing it. They just don't have the fan base and the support that's needed to do it.
What I think it is two or three really important things, right? And this is one of my biggest criticisms with other series at the moment. And it's because I'm privileged in having experienced One Piece and even Naruto and Bleach, right? And do you know what that is? Other series, their development is so fast, there's no room to breathe. Whereas One Piece, because it's so long, their development feels healthy, natural.
I mean, like it's why they have good world building.
Yeah.
Like otherwise, you just can't have that world building because you need to spend time to build out your world. Like you need to spend time on like random side characters that are only really important in that arc, and then they move on. And like take away like all of the backstories of all of the villains and stuff like that. Like all of the random people in the series, like the other people that you just kind of know. I don't know. It just seems like if Oda was rushing the series, it would feel a lot less fulfilling.
Yeah.
And I mean, it even happened to Bleach. They even cancelled it right at the end on Bleach. And then even like Hunter x Hunter, the dude's constantly on hiatus and he can't stick to the thing. You know what I mean? Like,
do you know what's crazy?
Series just don't really like work out that well.
Do you know what's crazy? Black Clover, 49. My Hero Academia, 20. That's how many chapters away they are from surpassing the amount of chapters in Hunter x Hunter.
Jesus Christ.
Think about that. And Hunter x Hunter came out before One Piece.
And Hunter x Hunter has the kind of support that they could do what One Piece does.
Yeah.
They could just take ages.
Yeah. Like I remember.
Like, I mean, they're constantly going on hiatus, and people are still watching it.
I remember when I first went through Hunter x Hunter. I love the series. I love the world. I said at the time, and I'm pretty sure I said it to you. I was like, dude, if this just had the consistency of One Piece, it probably could surpass it. But it doesn't, so it doesn't.
Yeah.
The thing is, though, it's like, while some series have got and again, I'm really upset about other series not having room to breathe, right? Like, for example, My Hero Academia, the newest arc that started in the anime, right? The manga, when that happened, I was so enthralled in it, and then when it ends, I was like, dude, I needed like another 6 months of this. Because without that, it's like character development just feels like it comes out of nowhere. And it doesn't really feel earned, and it doesn't really feel awesome. Because do you know what's freaking hilarious? And this is point number 2. Everyone that doesn't watch One Piece is like, it's too long. Everyone that's caught up on One Piece is like, it's too short. Right? Like, if you could press a button today and there was another 100 chapters out already, would you press that button and just start bulk throwing the series again?
Hell yeah, I would.
Like, in a heartbeat, eh?
Of course.
Ugh. Even if it wasn't the main characters. Like, I would genuinely, like, there are so many side characters in this story that I would read 100 chapter series of.
If you gave me like 100 chapters of filler, you told me this is 100 chapters of
Oh.
filler, I would read it. And even if you said like, if you go to sleep, they disappear and you can never read them again, I would stay up and just keep reading until I finished them.
Dude, 100%. Dude, I actually did a TikTok about this the other day. I was like, dude, One Piece needs more anime filler. I'm a fan of the anime.
Yeah,
I love the anime, but I'm like, dude, anime, shut up. Slow up. After Wano, we're not going to Egghead. We're going to 20 islands. We're learning about some random village that has some random problem. And we're spending, like, dude, how is it that, like, Boruto will have, like, 2 years of non-stop filler? And people are like, oh my god, Boruto's, like, the best new gen anime sort of thing. I'm like, dude, no, shut up. I'll trade you. Give me One Piece filler, please. If I got another G8-esque arc, holy shit. I would lose it. Like, dude.
And the thing is that it's a popular enough series that you can get people that are like genuinely good writers to take time away from writing their series that are already being published and instead write a
Side
small
story.
filler arc of One Piece.
Yeah, dude. And they would do it in a
genuinely would.
heartbeat just to be part
Do
of
it
it.
in a heartbeat. You'd barely even have to pay them.
I mean, just look at Batoichi's, like, taking time out of his schedule doing his own series to draw, like, panel for panel chapters of One Piece just in his art style to modernize it. Because he just loves the series and he's like, dude, I want to do this. This is cool. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, dude, I need that shit. When this series finally comes to an end, you don't understand how many OVAs they're gonna be able to milk out of me. Dude, if they had, like, One Piece Tube, right, which is like the One Piece streaming website, and it's like One Piece ends, they've got like a 6-month break, so you feel gutted that there's no content for a bit, right? You get that need, you get that itch, and then they're like, we're going to be bringing out special OVAs. You know, here is the God Valley OVA. Here is the Marine Civil War OVA, where it's like Akainu and Aokiji and their duel to become Fleet Admiral, right? Like, dude, I would pay so much money to just see a random fodder Marine and their perspective start to finish of Marineford.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, just imagine this poor, like, 5'6" dude, 5'8" dude. Sword, running around Marineford, and, like, from his perspective, he's just, like, fighting a random pirate, and then all of a sudden, there's an iceberg the size of, like, a 13-story building flying over his head. You know what I mean? Like, you could tell the exact same thing we've already gotten, just from another perspective, and, bro, I would eat that shit up. I would do so many things to get those stories and that content. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's just off a random dude. There are actual, like, genuine people's stories that is like, please, this is so interesting. Elaborate. Like the Supernova. Right? We haven't really gotten any information on any of the Supernova outside of lore. Right?
Sure.
Kid's backstory came in an SBS. We didn't even get, like, a manga version of his backstory. You know what I mean? Like, there's just too much, but not enough. And it is messed up in the worst way possible. Right? Like, I mean, look, they're able to do a whole cover story about the Germa, and I'm just sitting here just like, oh my god, we're getting the backstory of Mads. Yay, yippee. To the point that I can talk 15 minutes about some silhouettes.
I mean, that's the thing. Like, think about how much we've talked about the Germa thing, and I actually think, to be honest, I'd rather see something else.
Yeah,
Even then, it's still been interesting,
dude.
Interesting enough.
I have loved it, but like, I'm sorry. At this point in time, enough time's passed. Give me a category cover series, right? Of him in the aftermath of like Big Mom's dead. You've got to take over the the family business. Pirates start invading and stuff like that, and you got to defend yourself, and you got to defend your family now. And now that your mum's gone, you got to step up. Pudding's been kidnapped. Show me Katakuri coming after Blackbeard. Or
and there are so many like characters in the series that are like so well loved. You could do that.
Dude.
Like you could just
give me
have like all of these things that are just everybody would watch Ace. Anything to do with Ace. They've already done an Ace novel. Everybody would watch Ace.
Ace novel,
Everybody
Ace
would watch...
manga. How many games have come out and they just like, it's Luffy interacting with like a memory or a dead version of Ace.
Mm-hmm. They could do literally any of the Straw Hats going on an adventure during the time skip.
Mm-hmm.
You could do Katakuri. We'd be interested in King if you throw in some cool information about Lunari and stuff.
Jack!
Oh, yeah.
How did Jack join the Beast Pirates? The dude was 8 when Wano got taken over.
So give him some goddamn
like,
feats.
Dude, no. Like, genuinely, rewind the clock a bit, right? Jack's a fishman. Jinbei's a fishman, right? Out of all the fishmen we know, Jack is the second strongest fishman, right?
True.
He's 28. He's only 28 years old. He should have been around in the age of, like, Fisher Tiger at, like, the same age as, like, Arlong. A little bit younger than Arlong. Right?
True.
So it's like, as if there's not a story there. Like, how did Kaido come across an 8-year-old fishman and be like, join my crew, my son? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, give me that story. Give me the perspective of the one fishman in Fishman Island that didn't give a shit about race. And it was, like, so bad that he just left, and he ended up falling in more with Kaido because of their actual ideology than their, like, political stances on each other and stuff like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's just so many cool stories, so many odd things like that. Like, dude, at this point in time, I haven't...
Literally any country that they've come up with, basically, you can just give us a backstory on their culture.
I haven't...
Like, Sky Island people.
Mate.
Need more information about Sky Island people.
I haven't seen him in so long. I'll take a 40-minute episode of Bon Clay freeing other prisoners and being like, do you feel comfortable in your body? Are you actually a cross-dresser? You know, like, I don't give a shit, man. I just want Bon back. Like, there are so many characters like that I'm like, I don't even necessarily care what the content is. I just want to see them doing new stuff.
Oh, by the way, I've got a hard question for you. Who is the best person, most good person between Uma and Bon Clay? Both of those dudes. Just like, bro.
Until I get a backstory completed for Kuma, it's Bon Clay, and I'll tell you why.
Yeah.
I'll tell you why. Kuma is very sympathetic, and I feel like he's going to surpass Bon Clay, right? But you're also forgetting this motherfucker was the tyrant. And he may not have been a tyrant in realistic standpoint, but boy, go back and read Thriller Bark. That boy was a tyrant. The way my lord, he was menacing. Right? You know when people are like, speak to the hand, yeah? My boy just came and was like, speak to the hand of God. Just sending people. Right? Like, oh, mate. Artistically, no, like, go back and read the ending of Thriller Bark, because Kuma in the manga hits so much harder. Every panel he's in, he's a monster. Like he's like the precursor of Kaido. In terms of like Oda putting in effort to make him just look like a monster. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's pretty fair.
Whereas Bon Clay, oh my god, I love Bon Clay so fucking much. And the worst part is, when I started this series, I didn't give a shit about Buggy. I didn't give a shit about Bon Clay. Now, right? I would take a bullet for these men. Like, dude, Buggy's just failing from success. I love Buggy. But Bon Clay, the more I reread the series, right? Each time it hits a little bit harder. The fact that Bon Clay was like a sworn enemy of them, but because they met in an environment where they didn't know they were enemies, they just naturally became friends. And that is, on like a micro scale, that is so tragic when you think about that and that commentary, where it's like people on the other side are no different to you and me. You know what I mean? It's like you guys are perfect there, and I feel like Bon Clay. I'm pretty sure Morge did a big video on this. If you go back, if you go check that out, man. Check out Morge's video about the writing of One Piece. Right? I think it's called Why One Piece is Amazing, or Why There'll Never Be Another Series Like One Piece. Right? He talks about in that like the necessity of because VV wasn't going to join the crew, but is obviously going to play a major part in the future story of One Piece, right? Because of that, and because everyone wanted her to join the crew, you needed to establish that someone was going to be like you needed to establish that time isn't a factor with friendship and importance for characters, right? That they pack. They've got a dense emotional pack. You know what I mean? So it's like VV sailed. Like VV was only part of the crew for 12 volumes. She's only been in a tenth of the story, if that. Right? And in that time, she was a villain. She was a damsel in distress. She was a princess. You know what I mean? After that, though, the Straw Hats have all their adventures and even actually get their full crew, to the point that half the crew doesn't even know who VV is. And that's weird.
Yeah, true, actually.
That's weird, right? But the point of Bon Clay was like, it doesn't matter how long we've known each other, a friend's a friend, right? He got along so well with Luffy, didn't meet Sanji. Then in his fight with Sanji, him and Sanji respected each other a lot by the end of it. So they became friends in a weird way. Only for Bon Clay to sacrifice his life to save the Straw Hats against Hina. Right? Only for Bon Clay to then escape again and sacrifice himself to save the Baroque Works agents. Right? Only for him to go to Impel Down. And then when Luffy was at a stage where he lost his entire crew, he lost every friend he had made up until that point in the story. Who was it that came back? The one guy that he'd only known for 5 minutes, but they were best friends. You know what I mean? Like, dude, I'm sorry. Like, Bon Clay is one of those characters where it's just like, if you don't understand his purpose of a character, you won't care about him. But if you do, he hits deep. You know what I mean?
Yeah, he's a sweetheart.
Oh, mate. Like, I don't think I don't know if I would hurt someone if they threatened my boy Bond, right? If someone was like, Bond's a terrible person, I'd be like, you're wrong. You're wrong. Society doesn't need you anymore. You know? But dude, he's just amazing. He's just amazing. I love him. I do. That being said, though, right? That was a hard question for me. Yeah?
Yeah.
I got a hard question for you now.
Uh-oh.
If you had to wipe one arc out of the story, what would it be? One whole arc.
Fishman Island.
Hmm?
Fishman Island.
Fishman Island?
Yeah, for sure.
That's interesting. That's interesting. I hated Fishman Island the first time I watched through it. Right? When I did my reread through of it, I realized I didn't understand or appreciate that island because it came after Marineford and the ASL flashback, and it was nowhere near like those flashbacks. Like, it was nowhere near the grandiose nature of Marineford, and it was nowhere near like the emotional gut punch of ASL. Right?
Here's my counter to that. It was at a period of time where we just come back from the
Time skip.
time skip. Everyone was so hype on the series, and literally even just a half decent shitty arc where they showed like a little bit of just their powers off, people would be like, that was a sick arc. They still somehow didn't make it. Wasn't good in my opinion. The villain was just the worst villain that's been in One Piece so far.
I would urge you at some point, if you had the chance and the time, right? Read the arc. Because I agree with you. The anime, I did not like that arc at all. Right? In fact, I remember it really clearly because it was one of the only arcs in the series that actually started to put me to sleep at times while watching. Right? When I reread that arc, that hits so much more different. So much more different. I think it's also because like the stuff with Vanderdecken is very disinteresting for the most part, right? But he's a lot more annoying in the anime than he is in the manga, and his scenes in the manga are a lot quicker to get through, so you can actually focus on other stuff that's going on. Because it's like, dude, the way they portray those issues in that arc, rereading it, it's fucking painful, eh?
I don't think I'd like it.
No?
Just the villain just was not interesting to me at all. Even the side characters like Shirahoshi's annoying.
Fair.
Didn't really care for any of the princes. I didn't think they were that cool. Like they were cool. They were like good big brothers.
But
that was about it.
But yeah, they didn't have any substance. Like
Yeah.
outside of being like brothers, they were sort of absentee. You know, I get that. I really do. I think
the idea of just like showing off how badass Luffy is. I mean, look, you could maybe argue they did that, but it definitely didn't feel like they did that, right? Like you could talk about the Conqueror's Haki knocking out the army, and you could talk about the like showing off Red Rock or Red whatever the hell you call it originally.
Red Hawk.
Yeah, Red Hawk and all that stuff, and like he did show like some really cool shit, but I don't know. Like I think the general consensus among fans was like, I thought I was gonna see a bunch of cool shit now. I didn't really get it.
It
was,
also
like, dragged out.
It also was a bit of a bait and switch because they were hyping up Fishman Island for like literally multiple arcs. Like since Water 7, they were hyping up Fishman Island.
Yeah.
Only for when we got to Fishman Island, it was tone-wise a very heavy arc because it was dealing with like the discrimination in that. So it's kind of like it was a big bait. Like it clearly betrayed what they were setting up, but at the same point in time, when they were talking, whenever they talked about the island, it was always like it was a really happy thing. It was a very big bait and switch tonally, I think. But I don't know, man. Like the Fisher Tiger story, I love. It hits hard, and it's also made so much worse because I think at the end of it as well, it shows to an extent that Fisher Tiger and Jinbei are bad people. Not completely, but at that point in time in their life, they were like, they had enough problems going wrong with them. They just felt vindicated and justified in their actions though, because of all the terrible stuff that they had gone through without their, like just out of with no consent from them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's like, I think one problem with it is like, despite them experiencing those hardships and them trying to overcome it, they also like gave rise to the likes of Arlong and vindicated Arlong. They gave rise to the likes of blind, unnecessary, unreasoning hatred in the form of Haughty. They had like the Marco gang, which came from them, which ended up becoming slavers themselves. Like the Fishman Pirates was like people that had experienced terrible things, and all of them lashing out in different ways, and taking out their problems on other people in different ways. You know what I mean? So it was like a red hot mess, and it's like I can't fault them for it because it's like, dude, that's like messed up and that's sad, and it's like it's I don't want to say human nature, but it's like it's nature for people to be like, it doesn't matter if this makes sense or not. It's just how I'm going to act now because it's just like it's hard on you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But at the same point in time, it's like at that point in time, the people that were in that crew, like they're some pretty shit people, and they hide behind some pretty loose morals or logic, and they just sort of like have their own little echo chambers that vindicate what they do and what they say. You know what I mean? No different to how like the Marines experience the same stuff as well, right? The Fisherman Pirates are like bad in the same way that the world government and the Marines are, if that makes sense. Where it's like they think they're doing it for the greater good, but it's like they have so many necessary evils that they overlook that it's like side of a coin.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Okay. No, that's interesting that you picked that arc. I probably at this point in time would have picked Long Ring Long Land. I enjoyed it more reading, but like I still don't really care for that arc all that much, if I'm being completely honest. It's the best part about that arc to me is Afro Luffy and Aokiji.
I mean,
but I almost separate.
I was kind of going for like big major arcs.
Okay,
I feel like Long Ring Long Land is like equivalent to a filler arc.
If I had to pick a big major arc to completely remove,
yeah, it has to be relevant to the story, basically.
Would you count Thriller Bark?
I'd say I would.
I'm sorry, nothing happened.
That's fair.
Like,
it might be my second. Get rid of.
Okay, I really like Thriller Bark. It's just the main arcs in one. Like, okay, I would most people, I would say, most people tend to lean towards Annie's Lobby Water 7 being the best arc in the series. Like, I don't share that sentiment, but like, I pretty much everyone I talk to says it. Right?
I'll tell you what, I didn't, and then I looked at it again, and I was like, okay, I see what people are saying then.
I love it, and I do see it. It's just like, it's like Jaws, if that makes sense. Have you seen the Jaws movies?
I've seen the first one at least. I don't know about the others.
All right. The first one's great. Yeah? Suspenseful, great build-up. The second one is like they tried to do the exact same thing, and it just kind of was like, yeah, okay, it's exactly what I expected, but it just kind of dragged on. Like it just was the same thing.
Right.
The third and fourth one is it got gimmicky and it got weird because it was like, oh shit, people aren't liking just a shark. You know what I mean?
Yeah, okay.
To me, it's like, the Alabasta arc, start to finish, is phenomenal. right?
Mhm.
The Sky Island arc. A lot of people criticize Sky Island because they think it's got a slow start, right? I think although it's got a slow start, the slow start is acceptable because of how dramatic the conflict is, if that makes sense. But what I would say about it is probably singularly, if I had to pick any arc that best represents One Piece, it's Skypiea. It's just, we get to a new island, we get to a new location. It's new, it's exciting, it's weird. We learn about the culture, we explore. It's, man versus God, but, fakes versus reals, torture, all these sorts of messed up morals, mystery, the Void Century stuff. It's all there, just wrangled into one arc. You know what I mean?
Okay.
I really, and again, a lot of people are just like, Annie's Lobby is way too slow. It's got a terrible, beginning in that. It's like, I don't think people understand that what they call the slow build up and the boring part at the beginning, right? Is the sense of wonder and the sense of adventure. And it's something that I would say post time skip is missing. You know what I mean? Like, you don't really get a lot of like Luffy walking down a bush, picks up a stick, and just starts like using it like a walking stick and just singing. You know what I mean? Now it's all just like, oh my god, we've got a super bad enemy over there. Hiya! You know what I mean?
Yeah, I get you.
Like, I think it as an arc is the best representative arc of One Piece. Enies Lobby Water 7 speaks for itself. Even if it's not my favorite arc personally, it's hard to deny the interpersonal connections between like Luffy and Usopp and the rest of the crew. It starts off in this in this setting of like, it's a beautiful city that's surrounded by sea. As the Straw Hats go through mysterious intrigue and loss, the storm develops more and more until we get Aqua Laguna at the pinnacle of like our confusion and our subterfuge. You know what I mean? Only for daylight to break with us reaching Enies Lobby, because our thematical ideals have been cemented, and it's all we have to do is just take them down and take her back. And even though it's really complicated, it's made really simple, and like everything from the location to the weather supports it, and it's just thematically phenomenal in a lot of ways, right? Mm-hmm. Thriller Bark is fun, and it has a moment at the end of it that I feel like a lot of people will still argue to this day is the best moment in One Piece.
What, the combo attack?
Then nothing happened.
Oh, yeah, fair.
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
a lot of people go on hard for the end of that arc. And although Moria's laugh is annoying, right? You got to think, how many shonen do like a horror thriller based story arc and pull it off?
Yeah, true.
Is like, it's quirky, it's unique, but everything works perfectly for the setting. And even if Moria himself didn't seem super threatening, Oars did. Even if he was goofy, you know what I mean?
Yeah, he did.
And then having Kuma show up and Kuma being super threatening, there was definitely suspense. You know?
Mm-hmm.
Sabati all the way through to Marineford, I'm sorry, that shit is fire. That shit is a guitar pick on fire. Just playing the world's best song. You know what I mean?
I think the prison was a bit weak, but I loved Sabati and I loved Marineford. But I thought the prison was a bit weak.
I would say the prison was weak because weren't you aware though when you were going through about Marineford? coming.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So if you,
I mean, everyone was, like, the viewer in general was, right?
well, the viewer knew it was a consequence potentially. There was a possibility that we never got there, if that makes sense.
I mean, we saw. Did we not see that Ace had already been moved out of prison?
That was at the end of Ennie's lobby.
Taken.
Ace was in Ennie's lobby while Luffy was in Ennie's lobby.
Okay.
By the
I thought
time
we already knew.
by the time Luffy makes it down to Impel Down, like down to level 6,
Mhm.
is when Ace is just being brought back up to the surface.
Okay.
Right? So it's like, if you didn't know Marineford was definitely going to be an arc, right? Which, it was kind of hard not to, because I remember when you were first watching through as well, it was like, any site you watch One Piece on, it just had plastered everywhere, like, Marineford stuff. You know what I mean? Like, on banners on the side of every bloody loading screen and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But it's like, I could see if someone didn't know it was coming, it'd be like, ooh, this is suspenseful. You have, again, like, it's a prison break, which is like a really interesting concept. But at the same point in time, you've got a dude that's poison. So even if he's not strong, he's super deadly and super effective. It was very Rocky Horror Show-esque. You know what I mean? And we, like, you may not have felt it, but it's like, dude, the return of Crocodile and Baroque Works was sick. Was it not?
I don't know. I didn't give a shit.
Oh, man.
It,
When they're down,
I don't know.
six,
It just like it didn't seem. Just seemed like, oh yeah, here's this prison. Oh, level 1, we do this, but none of it was like substantive.
Okay. Look, if you didn't enjoy it, you didn't enjoy it. I wasn't a super huge fan of it because at the time I was like, I just want to get through. I just want to get Ace. You know what I mean? And I'm not gonna lie. I kind of felt like they were gonna make it to the war. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But right, that scene down in level 6 when Luffy gets down there and him and Ivankov free Jinbei because Jinbei is like, oh, you just missed Ace. We'll go save him. And then you hear, do you need a hand? Mugiwara. And it cuts to Croc in prison. The chills, motherfucker. The chills. That soundbite to this day is great, man. Right?
Yeah. The soundbite was good. I don't know about like. I don't know about the arc.
Luffy versus Blackbeard.
Again, meh.
Meh?
So here's the thing.
It was
in all of the arcs, I think you can be like, this happened, which is really cool.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It would no. Okay, you're right. It was meh, but at the same point in time, like when you're watching it the first time and you're experiencing it, right? And Luffy comes face to face with the guy that got his brother thrown in prison and is about to be executed. And it's like, do you get revenge or do you go save your brother? And he gets that first hit out where it's just like, doesn't even like Blackbeard finish his sentence. He just goes straight into a gut punch. He's like, get your bitch ass out of here. You know what I mean? It's just like, dude, it was great. It was great. But it's hard because from Sabaody all the way through to Marineford, I kind of, even though they're separate arcs, I kind of almost view it as one arc. I know it's a saga, but it's like, they really were just, none of them were a complete narrative. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then, you know, you got the return to Sabaody and Fishman Island, which we've already talked about. Punk Hazard, I think, is really underrated. I think a lot of people hate Punk Hazard and say Punk Hazard's boring or slow. And I think they forget what happens in Punk Hazard.
I think Punk Hazard is probably underrated. I agree.
Like, Law versus Smoker. Law and Smoker versus Virgo. Luffy versus Caesar. Kinnemon's introduction. You had the first real showcasing of observation haki with Sanji being able to sense people's bodies underwater. Which, by the way, sidebar here, a random bit of power scaling, actually, right? Random bit of power scaling out of nowhere. Do you know what's crazy? The observation haki works, but not from your mind. Right? Because we know there's no organ that activates observation haki, right?
Yeah.
So, like, your next immediate thing would be like, okay, it's your mind's eye reaching out. So, you know, your mind would be what's activating your observation haki, right?
Yeah.
Dude. Kinemon was split in half on either side of an island, and his observation haki worked through his dick. And his ass cheeks. think about that. He was talking by farting. And could sense and see where everyone was around his legs.
Point.
Like that,
I
like...
remember seeing that and everyone's saying like, oh my god, he's going to be so strong.
Oh, look, he was stronger than I expected him to be. Right? Take that however you will. Like, I'm sorry. When Wano Kinemon's not Kinemon pre-Wano. You know? Like, Kinemon pre-Wano was like, okay, he had the observation feat, yeah, but it's like, also, it's like, oh my god, that guy's so scary, and that guy's so strong, and oh my god, I can't do anything against this guy. Kinemon did nothing leading up to Wano, and then he gets to Wano, and it's like, dude's been on roids.
Yeah, he's like, I've been a mad samurai this whole time. I'm the leader of the scabbards. Da 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 da. Are you, mate?
I was just like, dude, you. He's a dog. He's a dog in that regard, is he not? But all of that, you get the stuff with Sad. You get Law's epic speech to Doflamingo about the gears of change. Right? Phenomenal. You got the return of Smoker as well. Low key, I'm still like waiting. Like, when's the next time we're gonna see Smoker?
I want to see Dofi again.
Yeah?
It's Dofi.
You miss Dopey? Yeah, Dopey's good. Dopey's a good G. Dressrosa was great. Dressrosa sucked week to week because Tontadas suck.
Yeah.
Dressrosa on a reread, because rewatching it is very different to rereading it because of the pacing, right? Dressrosa on a reread is like far out. That hits so many good goals.
Yeah, it would be way better.
Dude, you have... Do you know the Colosseum is done in like 15, 20 chapters?
Yeah, you've mentioned that before.
It's like the Colosseum's over in like no time at all. Right? But like, think about that. It's like you got the Colosseum, you got Doflamingo, you got Doflamingo's goddamn backstory when I saw Celestial Dragon. You got all that, right? You get the first post-time skip Admiral introduced, right? You get CP0 first show up, right? You get the Revolutionaries first show up, with Sabo coming back, right? You have a microcosm of Doflamingo standing for everything Luffy stands against, and how that also represents the D's versus the Celestial Dragons. Right? Where Dofi, even with the bird cage and the way he's manipulating everyone, is exactly what Luffy went through in the ASL flashback with the Drum Kingdom and the burning of Grey Terminal. And the purging of things that are lesser than you, with the people being turned to toys. Right? The toys aspect was heartbreaking. You know?
Yeah, it was.
Then you get the freaking god tier lore flashback. And you get the introduction of Gear 4 Luffy. Oh, that shit. That arc was fire. It was. That arc was fire. Right? An arc that used to be fire, but low-key sort of like isn't as impressive in hindsight. Zoe. I used to love Zoe because I was like, dude, it's it had such great info dumps that even though it didn't really have any action, it made up for it with just being so awesome and intriguing and mysterious. And then Jack turns out to be a scrub. And then you're like, wait, Beige and his boys just like straight up finessed Sanji, Brook, Nami, Chopper, and Caesar. Do you know how disappointing that is?
It's pretty, yeah.
In hindsight,
cringe, bro.
dude, Caesar got finessed by a smooth talker sounds like, I got a sea stone gun aimed at your head. Caesar, I surrender. It's like, I didn't have a gun, boy. As soon as I heard that, I would have been bailing. Like, dude, look. Ooh, that was some deep thunder then. Beige got that silver tongue. You know what I mean? Beige can talk the shit. Which, speaking of, when am I gonna get another cover series with Beige? I miss him. I miss Beige. I miss a Rouge. I miss Drake and Hawkins. Are Drake and Hawkins alive? Well, like, okay, at this point in time, are Drake and Hawkins alive? Like, that's a serious question.
Hawkins. You know what? I'm gonna go no on both. We'll need to die. We'll need to die.
Fair. I honestly think this final saga, Oda's going to get a lot more ruthless with killing, and I don't think people are prepared for it, because people still just, like, point to characters and they're like, they're going to come back, they're not dead, and it's like, dude, it's been, like, 5 years, 10 years.
By the way, yeah, you'll notice my list is going to have some entries not there.
Entries not there?
Because there are many assumed dead characters that I've decided to just say, well, you know what, they're dead.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair, if that's how you... Look, I did say on the lists, right, that you can interpret them as alive or dead either way, right?
Mm-hmm.
I know I've got some of those people on my list. I've actually got my list up here, but they are... Actually, shit, I may not have them really on my list because, honestly, the list is filled with... There's a lot of strong people in One Piece, eh?
I don't know. I think in the future it's gonna have to be a top 30 list, which like most people do, because the thing is that like people are dying now at I think a rate faster than.
The problem is the top 30 list is like a very easy standard of like, you know who's in the top 30, if that makes sense.
Yeah, but the thing is about ordering it.
Ooh.
The thing is like, where do you put these people? Like, do you think this person is stronger than this person?
Can I?
Whereas like top 50, like here's the thing, I think I have like 49. I just can't think of anyone else. Everyone that I think of now is like who's who level, and I'm like, I don't want to add who's who in there.
Do you have Kaku on the list? Screw Rob Lucci. Do you have Kaku? Everyone's favorite giraffe.
I have the CP0 elites as a
unit
combined, yeah.
Okay.
Because I don't think I don't think we've yet had any evidence that Kaku and Lucci is significantly better than people like Stussy or Guernica.
Okay. That's interesting. Okay. I am really tempted to ask you who your number one is, but at the same point in time, I don't want to know because I feel like there's just going to be beautiful conflict on the day.
I don't know. I don't know.
I've got my list right next to me right now, and I keep procrastinating with it because I keep looking at it and I go, "That's wrong," and then I start going through. I'm like, "Oh shit, is that wrong?" The more I'm looking at it, I'm like, "No, I understand why I put it there, and it makes a lot of sense," and I kind of stand by it. And then I'm like, "It just feels wrong to look at it and say," if that makes sense.
Yeah, I'm totally with you. Here's the thing. I think the whoever the strongest people is almost like pure narrative. It's basically like, where do you think the series is going?
Okay. Can I ask you a really random question? Excluding Shanks and Ben Beckman, right?
Yeah.
Film Red, did it help or hurt your perception of the red hair pirates? You reckon it helped?
Yeah.
Because
I'm excluding who? Wait, who'd you say to exclude?
Shanks and Ben Beckman.
Oh, I mean, I don't think I changed at all, really.
No? Because
Yeah, no, not based on that.
in Film Red, like, because I'm sort of in the mindset that they're not going to get showcased in the main story.
Possibly not.
Maybe I'm wrong on that, but it's like kind of like I don't really see them getting much love in the actual canon story at this point.
Yeah, I wouldn't fight you on it.
Which is like, if the only sort of like feats we get from them is from the movie, I'm kind of like low key. Like, Shanks was really impressive, and Ben Beckman at least has a lot of like.
Did we get from them?
We got to.
It was like combined attacks, right?
We got to see all of their fighting styles and stuff like that, and they were very kind of and that's the point as well, right? Yeah, we got combined
They
attacks.
They fight.
Some civilians, taught musica, those sorts of things.
Yeah, like as like just the combined attacks.
Yeah,
Like, yeah, we got to see the dude like turn into a ball and.
but no, but like that sort of thing. I was like, in the sense of just like, we've been hyped up and like we've thought for years that they're gonna be like all Haki masters in some regard, right?
Yeah.
And then I got like that movie, and like I know it's non-canon, so it shouldn't affect my ranking of it. But it's like in that movie, none of them used Haki, and then it sort of just had me sort of sitting there, just like low key. We've been thinking for the longest, it's like, oh, you know, people need to use Haki, but just like Jack didn't use fucking Haki. You know what I mean? And it's kind of like the more I was going down that line, I was like, oh my god, they're kind of not looking as impressive as I once thought them to be. When I was like, because they get hyped up by having like the highest average bounty, right? But it's like at the same point in time, it's like it's hard to say what gives them that high average bounty. You know what I mean?
I mean, I don't think what bad showing did they have?
Just a lack of feats in their own movie.
All they did, right, was like one combined attack with one of the Straw Hats, basically.
And
maybe we saw them like.
And they all got beaten up by fodder. Like they
were beaten up. Who beat them up?
The fodder, the like citizens that were being controlled.
I don't know. I don't know if I would take that into account.
Didn't they have the red hair pirates bleeding? And I get the whole turn the other cheek thing, but it's kind of like, you know what I mean? It's like, thematically, it's like, I get the whole just like turn the other cheek. It's fine, you know, we're here, we're being good people. But at the same point in time, it's like, you know, like the way they get hyped up is like, dude, why aren't you just like, you know, moving super fast and just getting out of there and not getting the shit punched out of you by literal like random civilians? You know what I mean? And then when it came time to when it came time to them to do like their special attacks were supposed to be like seemingly like you know, in the movie version, like, you know, these are my ultimate combo attacks, and like all the combo attacks were just kind of like, ugh, that's.
I mean, like, did you want them to be like firing blasts of projectile Haki from their palms of their hands?
No, but at least showing that they were using Haki wouldn't have hurt for some of them.
I mean, they were like fairly confident the entire time, and I mean, like, Shanks had a fucking mad showing.
I mean,
like a mad showing.
Yeah, no, and that's why I'm saying exclude Shanks. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, like
the crew, because at the moment, what I'm looking at when I'm seeing them is like, sweet, Shanks carries the crew with his rep. That's how it's starting to feel. Which is the same with Kaido with his crew, because Kaido's crew had higher bounties than the Big Mom Pirates crew, and then we got Kaido's crew, and Kaido's crew was kind of like,
I think the point of the show, though,
Well,
was to
again, I'm just saying in the mindset of if we don't get them in the main story, and that's their only showcasing, right?
Yeah.
And that's Oda and their staff showing them off. You know what I mean? Because if we get canon manga feats for them and they're better than that, I'm like, sweet. I feel more justified. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like, sweet, I got what I want. But if, like, the series ends and that, like, film Red is, like, the only showcasing we really got of those guys, there was nothing really super impressive about, like, the crew. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't really think they did enough to like.
No, but that's what I mean.
Say either way.
Because they didn't do enough in their own movie, it kind of felt like, you know what I mean? Because, like, okay, say the series ends and that is literally all we ever get on their crew, right?
I would basically just say we've pretty much had 0 feats from the crew, other than
Yeah,
even Ben Beckman. I don't really think we really got any feats from.
he didn't. He fired a gun. He shot a gun. Low key, Shanks and Yasop had the best feats in that movie.
Yeah, for sure.
Right? The rest of the crew, and like I at least give Benny some love because of all the like Viva card and data book sort of stuff, and like he just portrays himself like a beast. You know, like he carries himself well, right? But like,
I think Lucky Roo should get some love for having for being considered like the fighter of the crew.
And I used to give Lucky Lou a lot more love until I watched that movie, and then for the fighter of the crew, he literally curls up into a ball, and the other crew use him to attack.
Which is funny as fuck, by the way.
Funny as fuck,
but
it's also kind of
like. Okay, imagine him like harking up. They throw him at the speed of like a bajillion manillions.
What if it turns out that he can't use haki?
I mean, yeah, then that's just Caparuni, and he's just trash.
But that's the thing, because it's like in this movie, like I didn't expect them to be like, you know, all first commander level or anything stupid like that, right? But it's like in a movie that was debuting them, right? And you're showing their fighting style for the first time. It's like, we should have found out whether or not they do or don't have haki, at least some of the members, you know what I mean? Instead,
I don't know, because the thing is that like, what if their haki's like, because like we had that confirmed, right? Their haki, we had it confirmed to us level of like some of the abilities that some of them have, and like showing off that, it just takes away too much from the movie. It's like, oh yeah, and then Yasop has the power to see in the future permanently, and you can never.
I didn't need any advanced forms. Just using some regular black hardening would have been fine.
But I think it makes a difference because I think it's like basically assumed that they definitely have haki. Like they're not just gonna have 0 haki. So if we saw them do like basic hardening, it does not make them any stronger in my mind.
I don't know at this point in time. Like I definitely think
so
that some of them have haki.
Let's say Lucky Roo has no haki at all.
Yep.
What is he then? How is that even possible?
Just a fat.
He's considered the main fighter in the crew, and he's like, you know, he's been hyped and shown a lot. Like when in one of the first episodes, he literally just like basically teleports next to that dude and then shoots him in the head.
Yeah. But that's the thing, right? Like, okay, first things first. Like that scene is sick, and Lucky Roo holds the record for the first KO in One Piece, and it's beautiful. I love that scene so much, and I love Lucky Roo, right? But, right? At this point in time, Lucky Roo doesn't have anything that sets him apart from Jack. You know what I mean?
I get that, but at the same time, we've seen significantly less of him.
Yes. But, like, what I'm saying is, right, because like I was saying, I'm saying this based on the assumption that we don't really get anything more of them in the main story. Just because, they're a mystery. They never show up.
Yeah, but I wouldn't say that, like, oh, well, the only time that we saw them was he curled up into a ball and didn't use haki. Therefore, I mean, he mustn't have haki, right? Otherwise, we would have seen it.
I'm not saying that So that's the thing, right? I'm not saying he definitely doesn't, right? I'm saying until we get a feat of him being able to do it or a statement, it's something that I can't necessarily give him, right? And the reason for that as well is because we start to see other high tiers on other crews that don't have this stuff either, and it's kind of like, oh shit. And Lucky Roo is probably not the best example here, right? But like, if you're talking about like the other people in the crew, you know what I mean? Like Lime Juice and shit like that. It's like they weren't super impressive either. And for the crew that was being hyped up as the highest average bountied crew, right? It was like they were like, and for the longest, the fan perception has been like they have the strongest crew, right?
Well,
but like, you know, they're all bleeding and getting the shit kicked out of them by some civilians, and none of them do any special attacks. And I didn't need them to be like splitting continents and crazy shit like that. Like just having like when they do attacks, it actually like be effective or be against someone that's impressive. You know what I mean? Because instead, in the climax of that movie, I'd say the Straw Hats doing their attacks actually stood out more, and it was almost like a dick measuring contest between Shanks and Luffy, where it's like, look at how close my crew is to surpassing yours.
yeah, but in fairness, isn't that kind of true?
Yeah, but that's the thing, right? If every other crew still struggle, like the Straw Hats still struggled with pretty much everyone they've gone up against. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but I mean, they just beat a Yonko, so like,
Yeah.
assumedly now if they go up against like Crocodile, they're not going to struggle that hard. Like, you know, like Zoro against Mr. One again is not going to be.
Yeah, well, I mean, they're
fair
proving
fight.
it
I
now
mean, we
with
saw
Zoro
Zoro
versus Kaku.
Kaku.
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%. But it's one of those things where it's like the Red Hair Pirates crew were being hyped up as being like, oh, we're smarter than the average bear, boo boo. You know what I mean? And it's like, in their feature debut, we got nothing, really. Like, and maybe it just sounds like I'm being like super negative for no reason. It's like, I'm not saying that these guys don't like, you know, potentially have haki and stuff like that, right? And anything like that. I'm saying from like from a critical standpoint, right? If we get more of them in the story, I'll be happy and it'll be impressive and I'll like it. But if the story ends and we don't really get anything more, or if they get killed off screen, right? And that movie is the only feats we ever get for those characters, they didn't really show anything impressive. Is what I'm saying.
So I get that they didn't show anything impressive, but I wouldn't say they didn't show anything impressive in the same sense of like we saw them do a fight and they didn't show anything impressive. Like literally, for example, for Lucky Roo, all we saw was someone like threw him and he turned into a sonic ball and barged into someone. That's just like goofy fun.
Yeah.
It's just like you see that and you go, "Huh, that's funny. That's how he fights. That's real. That's really."
But that's
goofy."
also his main
not
way of
like
fighting. He gets kicked by his
No, but-
crewmates at people.
Well, I mean, as far as we can tell.
No, that's like confirmed. Not just from the movie, but from like Volume 4 Billion. They talk about all their fighting styles and they like give descriptions. He curls up into a ball and he fights by the rest of the crew kicking him at enemies.
Yeah.
So like,
Oh,
Lucky Roo going up against Queen needs to team up with other crewmates to fight Queen because they've got to kick him.
Yeah, I guess, but it's also that same thing of like
It's synergy and it's cool,
like-
but it's like
yeah, when they talked about the Pirate King's crew like working so well together, and that's what
it-
made them so good. It's like Shanks is basically emulating that.
it is cool, but that's the thing that is kind of like they got hyped up for having the highest average bounty because it's supposed to sort of be like individually they're all way more impressive than other people's crews, only to rip that away and be like, yeah, they're only kind of good together. Is what I'm sort of saying.
I reckon. I don't think it's they're only kind of good together. I think it can. What I'm saying is basically like we saw Jack fight many times.
Yep.
And then every single time we saw him fight, we were literally just like waiting for him to do something cool and to be strong, and it just never happened. And then eventually, like towards the end, we gave up. Like literally,
Jack
when
the
he got
Jobber.
taken out by the minx, that was kind of when we gave up on him. Before that, we were like, oh hey, maybe.
Yeah,
maybe he's
and so
gonna
this is
come
the
back. And that
thing.
was like 4 fights later, you know, like his 4th loss consecutively. We finally gave up on him.
with like Lucky Ruin and all those characters, we literally haven't even seen them do a fight.
But
We've seen one of them kick him into as a ball into an enemy, and he wasn't obviously
okay,
harkied up. That's it.
but that's the point. That's the point I'm getting at, right? Because like Shanks is like, I'm going after the One Piece, right? So if we're gonna see the Red Hair Pirates crew do anything, it's gonna be soon, right?
Yeah.
What if we don't get anything from them? What if they get beaten off screen? Say the Blackbeard crew wipe them out.
Yeah. I would just say you don't know how strong they are.
Yeah, but in this situation where you go, you don't know how strong they are, it's kind of like, it's disappointing, right?
I would
it
say...
not be disappointing?
Okay, I'll give you this, right? So, if Garp goes in there, fights a couple of the Blackbeard pirates, successfully rescues Kobe, and then gets out, that to me is like disappointing on Blackbeard's side. And then if after that Blackbeard takes out Blackbeard's crew takes out Shanks's crew,
Yep.
that's disappointing on Shanks's crew.
Yep.
For sure. But if Blackbeard beats Shanks's crew, it's kind of like, ooh, Shanks must be really strong.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Oh, wait.
Unless you have like a similar feat.
If Blackbeard's crew beats Shanks' crew, Shanks is strong.
If Blackbeard's crew beats Shanks's crew, I wouldn't necessarily say, oh, Shanks must be like Shanks's crew must suck.
No.
Like,
You'd say
sick.
you'd say Blackbeard's crew is stronger, right? Unless it got to the point where we fight Blackbeard's crew and we see them and they're scrubs, and then it's like it does the reverse where it's like, oh shit, you guys got beaten by this.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? And so that
I agree. I'd totally be down for that. Like, yeah, like that's the thing. Like, if Garp got away, if Garp got his way and won that, and then Shanks lost, I'd be like, ooh.
Let's drop this Shanks conversation for a bit, just because, like, I feel like we both agree. It's just the difference in the passion of like how we're explaining it, because it's like both of us want the Red Hair Pirates to be sick and have great feats. It's just I'm starting to look at it where it's like from like the Jack the Jobber standpoint, where it's like, you know, we've had opportunities for Jack to like show up, and it's like, oh, he's not showing up at some point in time. If he doesn't show up, it's gonna be like, oh fuck, you know what I mean? But let's switch gear. Garp and the Blackbeard Pirates. Let's touch back on this for a minute. Yeah. We've had a bit of time to breathe, had a bit of time to think. What are your thoughts on it?
Look, I mean, basically, like I just said, like I think if he loses, if Garp gets in there and successfully gets what's his name out, shit, man. Huge.
I think I've kind of flipped on it. I think Garp has to succeed, not just for Kobe, but because Blackbeard ran from Rayleigh.
Okay.
Because as impressive as Rayleigh is, Garp's supposed to be the peer of Rayleigh's captain.
I'd agree he's better, but it could always be like okay, but Garp is attacking me.
Yep.
And yeah.
Yeah, no, it definitely could be that, right? But Rayleigh.
So I'm thinking
Rayleigh was
by the way,
enough to make
those...
Blackbeard fleeing from something that he actively wanted.
Those bounties, canon?
What bounties?
Bounties that you've been putting in Discord.
No, those aren't canon.
What's the go with them? Who's doing that?
Me. I've been doing that for my TikTok, right? I'll pull them up now. So, do you want me to go through and explain
You put Garp and shit fucking high.
Do you want me to explain it? There's
talking about this. It'll be a whole side thing.
No. Oh, okay. Well, no, screw it. I'll gloss over it quickly, right? Because it's interesting, right? Guys, if you don't know what I'm talking about, in my Discord, there's a section that's got TikToks uploaded where I've been doing a series on TikTok at the moment where I make bounties for Marines from the perspective of the Cross Guild, right? But I also try to do it from the mindset of Oda, where there's a joke, right? So like, you know how like all the bounties that come out have like a specific pun or a reference to the character.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be like that. For example, the top one is Akainu, right? Who's the current fleet admiral,
Yeah.
right? So the reason I put him at the 4 billion is because anything like from the standpoint of the Cross Guild and the world, he's the fleet admiral, so he's like the strongest marine in existence, strongest military person in existence that works for the world government, right?
Right.
So like you couldn't really put him less than that at this point, right?
Yeah.
The 929 is Q in Japanese. So it's like a pun on Akainu, Q.
Okay.
Right? So that's why I gave him that number. Right? For Aramaki, right? I gave him the lowest out of these characters, kept it in the same ballpark as the current Yonko contenders. So his bounty I put was 3,690,000,000, right? The important number there is the 690 mil because it can be read as Rokogyu or
Right.
Rokogyu. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's just keeping that same sort of naming pun going. Garp and Sengoku I gave a bit higher because from again these are from the perspective of Cross Guild, right? What would be more impressive, taking out an admiral or taking out the hero of the Marines?
Yeah, I could see it.
So they give him that's why his bounty's a little higher, because it gives him a bump. And it's actually in line with the likes of Whitebeard. Right? Because Whitebeard's was like 5,070,000,000.
Right.
So it's got like they're close enough. But the pun there is the so the 5 can be read as go, right?
Yeah.
And then the 6-3 Roku-san. So go Roku-san. So it's like trying to emulate that Garp-san sort of sound.
Okay.
In the spelling, right? With Sengoku, right? The 356 million on it, right?
Yep.
Is literally can be read as Son Goku. Son Goroku. Right? The 5 there, because he was actually like the former fleet admiral during Roger's era. He's got the same betrayal as Garp. He's also regarded as a hero and insane fire and stuff like that. The only reason I gave him a little bit more than Garp in that is just because from the perspective of the world, he was the fleet admiral as well. You know what I mean?
Yeah, right.
The others there aren't super important. Kizaru and Aokiji I had like neck and neck with each other. Fujitora had higher than them. I can't remember the specific. I think it's because the yeah, okay, so the 143 on Fujitora, so I thought 3,143,000,000 was too low for Fujitora, right? So I put it at 4 billion, so it was in line with the Yonko bounties, right? The 143 mil is Ichi-shi-san or Isho-san, right? Just emulating that same sort of sound. And then I've continued going through doing the bounties of the vice admirals, and I've gotten more elaborate with some of them, right? For example, scroll down, you see the one with Dole?
Yeah.
Right? So the 994, right?
Yeah.
Can be read as Kokeshi. So for Kokeshi dolls. Get it?
Okay.
So it's just
Yep.
like I've gone through, tried to keep like the main front number in a range that I think is acceptable for those sorts of ranks from the perspective of like the Cross Guild, and then the rest of the number doing what Oda does, where he makes a pun out of it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's like all different sorts of things. So it's like from trying to replicate their names to characters' birthdays, to all sorts of impressive stuff. Like so where Dole is, if you go look at Maynard's one, right? He's got a really random number, right? That random number, first things first, I think Maynard's the weakest Vice Admiral. So I gave him the smallest bounty for a Vice Admiral so far, because I think the bounties of the Vice Admirals are sort of over that 230 mil range, right?
Right.
His bounty though. So see how it's 19. It's the 19th of the 9th, 1684, which is the real world Maynard's birthday, who is the guy that was credited with having killed and captured the real life Blackbeard, right? And so different stories say that after he killed Blackbeard, he decapitated him, and he swam around the ship 2 or 4 times. So that's 2, 4, and then Maynard's birthday. So again, it's like elaborate, but also like something Oda would do.
Yeah, okay.
You know what I mean? And I've had a lot of fun going through with it, just because it's been sort of like it's been a little bit of a challenge, but it's also just been one of those things where it's like we probably will get bounties, and we might be able to see if these things are like close to what they actually are when we get Cross Guild actually releasing bounties and stuff like that, and see if Oda sort of had the same mindset for puns and stuff like that. So it's just been sort of like a fun little mini series I've been doing.
Yeah, cool.
While you're looking at it, because do you have the Discord up?
Yeah.
Which one's your favorite bounty that I've made so far? Based on the
thought
picture.
it was really. Oh, the picture. Okay.
Or the number. Go for both.
Well, okay. I thought it was really interesting that you did. Fuck. What's his name? You did Gravity Guy
Fujitora.
above Kizaru. I know how much you friggin' love Kizaru.
Yeah. Okay. Look at Kizaru and now Kiji's number, right? Kizaru? Right?
Yeah.
So 936 Kyusaroku. Kizaru.
Yeah.
So I literally can just you can read that bounty as his name.
Right.
Which is why I gave him that bounty. Because again, I feel like it's like even when doing the Yonko bounties, right? Remember, like Oda had like a 500 mil difference between Roger and Whitebeard, right?
Mm-hmm.
But like Roger's bounty, like spelt out his name, and Whitebeard's bounty spelt out his name. So I feel like
Yeah.
Oda goes more for the pun than to be like, this person's like hard over this person in power scaling, if that makes sense. So I was more focused on like, what would the naming scheme be, and would it be interesting and fall in line with like a soft power system for these? You know what I mean? Because like, if you look at Kizaru, so Kizaru's is 3,936 mil, right? Which at the moment is higher than every single Yonko other than Shanks, right? Look at Arkiji's. Arkiji's is the exact same bounty, just without the 6 on it.
Mm-hmm.
Because you can read it as Q-Sun for Kuzan. So it's Kuzan and Kizaru.
Yeah.
So it's like they're neck and neck. So it's like I think from a creative standpoint, they've been like they've worked well together. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I can see it.
So okay, you like that Fuji's number was higher. Whose actual image do you like the most for the bounties so far? And a little spoiler, I've been working on CP0 today, or on CP, all the CP agencies' bounties today. And I've done it as a fun little gag. So you've heard it here first, guys. So you know how the CP0 have masks?
Yeah.
I've put 2 bounties out. One for characters that have been spotted without their masks, and ones that have got their masks, as if they're 2 different characters. So
Yeah,
like,
okay.
so like the puns are like, you know, like you got Kaku's, who's like, got his own generic bounty, but then for him wearing his mask, it's like the long-nosed mask guy, and shit like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, so which bounty post do you like the look of the most?
I like John Giant.
Yeah, the just the
'Cause
stature.
it's like, I just imagine like, oh no, I guess this is you know what? Changing it completely. I like Comil's.
Comil's the coffee.
It's a meme, and I feel like they're gonna be a bit mean with it, right?
Yeah,
They're a
dude.
pirate organization.
100%. 100%.
Isn't the reason that I said John John at the start was I was thinking, oh well, it's the Marines. They're gonna want it to look really good, and then I realized, wait,
It's
Marines aren't doing it.
Yeah. But like, yeah, that's the that's the reason. The only problem is some of these characters have like no images. Like if you go down to the latest batch I posted, the first dude, Vice Admiral Cancer, dude, that is the clearest image of him in the entire manga. Without him being manipulated by Dofi and choking out another man. Like it is hard to find images of this dude. But I like them. I like in Lonza's one that it's like him mid-fight. Like the giant characters have had some cool. I've had fun with some of their bounties and that. I've also learnt some interesting things about people's naming schemes and stuff like that. Like Yamakiji down the bottom right. I found out that Yamakiji means forest fire. So,
okay.
I don't know if he's like a smoker that leaves his cigarettes at bloody woods and stuff like that, or if maybe he's gonna have like some forest fire, like flame or heat related devil fruit.
Right.
But it's like just weird stuff like that's been kind of like okay, that's cool, that's interesting, it's fun. And obviously I give a little bit of love to characters I like Dole. Dole's a babe. I love Dole.
Yeah, Dole's good.
Yeah. And then the vice, the admiral candidates, staying in line. So Chaton was at 944. So like none of the admiral candidates even cracked a bill for it. So it's not like I've gone too crazy with the numbers for them. You know what I mean? Because I also feel like characters and their bounties get grandfathered in. You know what I mean? Like Whitebeard's bounty was when he was an old man. So we know it got updated when he was old. Right?
Yeah.
So it's like these guys in their prime... Oh, God, that was a big flash of lightning. These guys in their prime right now, like, you got to think, it's like Luffy's a Yonko at 3 bill flat, and Shanks is the highest rated Yonko at the moment with 4 bill. So it's like, I tried to keep the same sort of energy alive with, like, the only people being exceptions being, like, Sengoku for the status, Garp because he's a hero, and just Akainu because I reckon the like world hates Akainu. They just think he's terrifying.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. Like it's a little bit of it's a little bit of extra gas for him. Whereas these other characters, like, who knows? I don't even know, but like, do you think we'll ever get a point in the story where we get like a Marine's bounty from Cross Guild, and then they get an updated bounty when they do something scary to the pirates? Or is there not enough time in the story for that?
Yeah, I was about to say that. I don't think there's enough time in the story.
But it would be an interesting concept to try and cover, you know what I mean? Where it's like, do the Marines almost look at the Cross Guild bounties as like, you know how like Luffy's like, oh my God, my bounty went up, yay! Do the Marines go, yeah, my bounty went up, they're scared of me? You know what I mean? Like, it'd be a really cool flip of it. And something I'd be really interested to see happen. But yeah, I gotta heap more of these I'm gonna post. I'm at least gonna finish the Vice Admirals. I've got a few Vice Admirals left, and I'm doing a batch at the moment for CP. I don't know if I'll continue with Marines after that. I may even do some fun ones for the Seraphim.
Ooh.
Just because, like, it is what it is. And like I said, this is sort of like a little joke, but also a predictive thing where it's like, if we see any of these characters get bounties in the actual story, it'd be interesting to see how close some of these numbers are to them. You know what I mean?
That's true. I mean, based on the naming convention, it'd be interesting to see if you actually got any of them bang on.
Yeah, like even.
But I would say though, the sun bit that you put at the end of the names, is that common that Oda does that?
The sun, not a lot, but the reason I did it is because it's an honorific for certain characters.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then characters that don't have the honorific, like, so for example, everyone calls Garp Garp son. Right? Because, like, everyone of all ages has respect for Garp, right?
Yeah.
So, the 5 being Go, and then the 6 being Roku, and 3 being Sun, go Roku Sun. It's not 100% Garp Sun, but there's no number convention that gives a P sound, right?
Yeah.
But it's like, it's close enough that you can sort of like read it like that with the trick of your pronunciation. You know what I mean? Whereas other ones like Q-Sun for Kuzan is a lot easier to get. Like, that Sun's not because it's like an honorific, but because it's like part of the name.
Yeah, it's a lot more like, obviously, I should go.
Just like Kizaru,
Shit's
like
a lot better.
Kizaroku, Kizaru, like trying to get the like first little bit of the name out. You know what I mean? I'd probably say where I get like some odd or lazy naming schemes is probably... Oh, actually, one I'm sort of proud of. Bastille's Bounty, right? Bastille Day in France. It's just a date. And I could definitely see Oda doing that. You know what I mean? But like Chaton's Bounty, the 9 was sort of irrelevant. It's just I wanted to keep him around that 8 or 9 mark. And because Oda can be a little bit sexist, I thought Oda would probably put him over Momoshiki, right? But the 44 110, I can't remember specifically what part of it is, but it can be read as brown, and the 110 can be read as a way to count pigs. And because his name, as an like admiral candidate, is Brown Pig, it's like brown counted pig.
Yeah.
So it's like, again, not 100% because I'm not fluent in Japanese, but it's just like, you know, it's just like trying to pick up a few of these things. And like they
Yeah, it's just a fun thing to do.
I think they've been interesting enough as well that people have been like, oh, that's cool. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I also remember a lot of characters that I'm like, oh man, like, we still haven't seen them. I want to see more of them. And I've tried to give a bit of love as well, because it's like, you've obviously got, you know how there's like vice admirals and then base commanders?
Yeah.
I've tried to give the base commanders over the vice admirals that work under them a little bit more of them. So, for example, I say the 2 weakest vice admirals in that regard are Maynard, who's 241, and Bastille, who I've got at 314, right? Both of them obviously present at Dressrosa. Maynard's obviously under Bastille in that regard. Bastille's still impressive in that 300 mil range, but at the same point in time, he got folded by Sabo, but that same Sabo was fighting Fujitora. So it's like...
Yeah.
Like, some people look at it and go, Sabo was worth 600 mil at that point in time, and he folded him, so he must be dirt. As opposed to, Sabo had a conservative 600 mil and was fighting an admiral. And then, like, a week later, right, robbed that admiral. You know what I mean? So it's like, they try to stay grounded, but they also try to have like those puns in them and stay with that consistency and stuff like that. Like Strawberries, 415 mil, that 15 mil, which I learned in the funniest way. Strawberry in Japanese, the word is Ichigo, which makes sense because of Bleach, right?
Yeah.
Which Ichi 1 Go 5. So Strawberry's Bounty is literally his name in a way.
15.
Yeah. So like, and like some of these are like eerily on point. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, it's cool. It's cool. But yeah, if anyone wants to see these, right, the link for them is in the description down below in the link tree, where you can follow me on Discord. Join the Discord to talk anything anime and manga related and see these bounties that I've made up. You can follow the Twitter, where I post short form theories and stuff like that. You can follow my Twitch, where at the moment I'm doing my playthrough of One Piece Odyssey. I've still got to play through the rest of God of War Ragnarok and Gotham Knights. And check out the TikTok, where I do a bunch of other theories and stuff like that. That's me plugging that for this video, because I won't do that later on because I'm lazy. Other than that, is there anything else you wanted to talk about this chapter?
I'm pretty happy.
I'm pretty happy too. It's 11:30 right now, so I'm assuming you want to go chill.
Good time, yeah.
Yeah, I'm keen for a laydown. Thankfully, there's no break. Although next time there is going to be a break, we're going to have to organise to do the damn top 50 stream. Finally, I've put it off so many times. I'm healthy.
By the way, I tried to find. Can you send me my last one if you still have that Excel thing?
Oh, the Excel thing got wiped. I can.
There's no upload on your channel of our last one either, so I couldn't even find it.
Yeah, there is. Yeah, there is.
I scrolled through like every video and I could not find it.
I'll send you the link for it if you want. Because last time
please do.
I was having issues with it, so I had to screenshot that stream to find it.
Yeah, right.
Oh, okay. That being said, do you want to say goodbye, my dude?
Bye, my dude.
Goodbye, my dude. Until the next video of mine you watch, or until the next chapter of One Piece, whatever it is, you're here for. Peace, nothing but love, nothing but respect. Thank you for coming out. Have a damn good day. Goodbye.